as, of course, other added value products that go through there. I believe that honey adulteration is in fact proving to be a far greater threat to our industry than even varroa. It has the potential to completely erode the industry. Honey is natural liquid gold. It's the most amazing product, triple bottom line product that's good for us, tastes good, and of course it's good for the environment. But we need to protect that, and of course where there's money, there's greed, and there's going to be fraud. And it's very important for us to look at ways to protect our industry. Everyone wants to be a part of this industry, and it's very important for us to protect it. Not only does adulterated honey create very bad media, of course it erodes our customer base, our consumers' confidence in the industry and the natural products. But of course, if you're getting adulterated product that's being produced far below standard production costs, we're getting dumping into the marketplace, which is having a huge effect on the global honey market prices. How can one buy product in the EU, for instance, at something like a quarter the actual production price? How can this be? So there has to be adulteration. We have a good team of experts here today to assist us with this problem. Etienne, can I ask you to come forward, please, and talk about the European situation, and then we'll move around the world and talk to some of our experts. Etienne Bruno.
Hello, everybody. I will try to give the position of the European beekeeper in the European market, because I don't know the other aspects. So for the beekeepers, the price of product is very important, and we try at the European level to develop very high level of quality, and everybody knows this. And for the other beekeepers, you know that the rules in Europe are very strict. What we observe during the last 3-4 years, we can see that the Chinese market is increasing and take a lot of place. And it's probably due to the price, because they produce and they can sell honey at very, very low price. And we are really afraid of this situation, because it's something surprising. Because when we analyze the situation of the beekeepers everywhere in the world, the number of colonies is decreasing, the productivity of the beehives decreased too, and in Europe, I returned in the time now, 15 years ago, something like this, where the Commission tells that we will introduce new country, east part of Europe, will enter in the European Union, and so we will have a better balance between the production and the consumption, because we introduce Hungary, and a very big country who produce a lot of honey. And what we can see, in the past we import, I think, 45% of our consumption. And today, we introduce Hungary, we introduce Bulgaria, and the situation is nearly the same. And the prices are always the same too. And so, we have a decrease of production, it's clear. When you see a country like France, the productivity of the beekeepers, I think they import today 28,000 tons, and before they import 3 times less. So it's a very big difference. So this is the situation in Europe. So the productivity decrease. If you see the situation in North America, it's exactly the same. The productivity decrease. When you observe the situation in Argentina, but you can perhaps illustrate this better than I, but I think that with the GM and with the soya, all the Pampa was one of the most important parts of the world where you can produce a lot of honey. The productivity in Pampa is decreasing very, very quickly. So, you see this different case, and when you analyze the statistics, you see that in the Asian country, you have a country like China, and there the productivity is exactly the same every year, and it increases. Sure, they can produce, they can develop their beehives, it's possible. But it's surprising, because when you analyze the number of hives that they have, and the productivity of the hives, they are up to 50 kilograms per hive per year. And everywhere in the world, you can arrive to 35, 40 kilograms per hive per year. So, what? Chinese beekeepers are very, very good beekeepers. It's probably the solution. But the climate, it's a very big continent. In fact, it's nearly a continent. And how can we explain that at this scale, there is no difference? So, it's the first question. Just a question. I have no, perhaps somebody here can answer to my question. And they can produce a lot of honey with a very low price. Because I think that they are nearly at the half of the price of the normal market. How is it possible? It's for European beekeeper, we tell that it's impossible. They kill us. Perhaps they have the key, but where's the key? What's the key? Other questions. Yesterday we had here a round table with GM, and this round table, we speak of forbidden. It's like a German, it's GM, and we can find this GM here in Europe, and in this case we have to destroy the product. But from China, I think we never find a forbidden GM, and they have forbidden GM. So, how is it possible? Sure, everybody knows that we can ultrafiltrate honey, but only in case of sanitary problem. But GM is not a sanitary problem. So, you see also a lot of problem at a world level, where you have a court attack against Chinese importers or exporters, and you see it's like very opaque. It's a black box in a lot of cases. And so, in this situation, the beekeeper decide to try to introduce some action at the European level. And I personally met DG Trade, and DG agreed to find solution to try to solve this problem. But now, our problem is we have to prove something, and to put on the table the proof that there is a real problem. And what's the impact on the beekeeper? How can we prove that all the other beekeeper in the world has a decrease of production of rentability? Okay, so we have to prove this. Without this, we can do nothing. So, if you can help me to do this, I will be a very happy person. Thank you.
It explains the problem, of course, that if the business is no longer viable, then beekeepers are not going to continue producing the product. So it's a big problem. There's a circle that goes around. So we'll perhaps talk about some of from some of our experts on ways of identifying this fraudulent honey, perhaps. So could we ask that your presentation is available, Lutz? Be wonderful. Another presentation coming up. Lutz is from Intertech Food Services in Germany and has some very interesting information.
So thank you very much, Maureen, for inviting me to this roundtable. I'm from Intertech, which is basically a private laboratory working in the worldwide honey business in terms of analytical testing, imports, exports, retail, sometimes also for food control authorities, for consumer organizations, all interested parties in this field. So I will give you some views, some of our experience we have from our lab. So I just wanted to present some data from the FAO statistics. They might not be correct. Maybe the honey industry has more correct numbers, but at least it gives you an impression about the top production countries, the major imports, exports, and the production prices. So here is now the major producing countries, and you can see, for example, China is much larger than all other countries. Also, the production prices, the price per ton, are varying in a wide range, and especially those countries who have low production prices. These are honeys which are usually exported into other countries and may face also problems with quality in terms of adulteration. Here we have the top exporting countries, and again, China, South America, India, other Asian countries. They are major exporting countries. Major importing countries, of course, are United States and countries from Europe. So that's because the major honey consumption is also in Europe and in the United States. It's not so much the consumption of the honey itself, but its use as an ingredient in other food commodities as a replacement for normal table sugar. So the use is very large, the demand is very large, so we are importing into US or Europe, we are importing a lot of honey, and this honey somehow has to be controlled. So what are the challenges, the factors influencing the honey quality, and also where adulteration of honey may arise? So for the commercial honey blends, the cheap honeys you get on the retail market in the supermarket shelves, the prices are very low. Maybe if I look at Germany, it's maybe €2 or a little bit more, but it's really low for a glass jar of honey. Of course, those companies who have to provide these honeys to the retailers, they have a low profit margin because the price pressure is so big. There's also from the consumers, of course, there's or also from the, let's say, from the scientific view and the honey quality testing, there's a high demand in the specifications for honey specialties like Manuka honey or other high pressure, high valued honeys. Of course, as also Etienne Bono already told us, we see globally that the yields of honey every year are decreasing a little bit due to climate, due to problems with honeybee diseases. So it's really difficult to obtain raw honeys at reasonable or payable prices. The overall demand for honey supply worldwide is increasing, and how do you manage to fulfill this increasing demand for honey? You cannot simply increase honey production like for an industrial product, just building new plants or something like this. You have to build up the bees, the beehives, in order to produce more honey. Of course, then you face an increasing shortage of supply, and this may be also a reason why honey adulteration occurs, simply to increase somehow the amount of honey available for the market. Of course, maybe in the past, let's say, between supplier and buyer, you know, there are good relationships, but these good and long-term relationships, they seem to now be more fluctuating, more in the short term. So you do not really know, can you really rely on your supplier or not? And this may also be a problem, because then you have to increase testing to be sure about the quality, and you never can be sure. So these less long-term relationships may be also a problem to ensure the quality, the purity of the honey. So if you are not sure about what you get, if you buy honey somewhere from a different country, then you of course have to do more testing, you have to spend more cost, and this is additional price pressure for the production. Another problem is that there are really different standards for honey quality, for honey authenticity in different countries, especially in Europe. The standards are quite high. Outside Europe, they are more or less good. Sometimes there are no standards at all, especially in third countries. So there's a big difference in assurance of the quality and the purity of the honey. And also in different countries, there are different consumer expectations about honey. For example, it's completely different what a European consumer expects from honey than, for example, in the US. In the US, every honey must be clear, it must be liquid. If the honey is already crystallized, it is, let's say, considered to be inferior, and that is simply not true. It depends on the honey type, if it's more crystallized, a creamed honey or a liquid honey. So all these different consumer expectations, they also influence what is being placed on the market and the quality of it. And also sometimes a hindrance or an issue to place good honey on the market, especially in the EU, is that honey is a product of animal origin, so there are strict rules from the European Union which has to be controlled, but in the first line only for residues, for example antibiotic residues or pesticide residues. But at least honey adulteration is not regulated within this third country approval. So just to give you an impression why honey adulteration may occur, I just give some coarse or rough numbers about the prices for simple products. And you see, honey can be quite expensive. This is just an average maybe you may expect, but the syrups are much, much cheaper. So we have different types of syrups which may occur as adulterate in honey. And so basically, as the sugar syrups are so much cheaper, you can already obtain with a certain percentage, like 10% or 20% of adulteration, you can gain a quite good economic profit of that. So there's a lot of people being tempted to do that for economic profit. So it's an economically motivated adulteration. And of course, the more the shortage of natural honey occurs, the more the percentage of honey adulteration due to the increasing demand for honey may occur. So, especially in the last year, there has been a lot of press releases in the international media. Here are some examples of this, about fake honey, about synthetic honey, about honey which has been mislabeled, coming from a different origin that is stated on the label. Even in China, they are now looking for that fake honey and try to avoid or try to do something against it. And there are also sometimes the consumer organizations, they are looking for that and testing for that. So I think it's now quite in the public focus. Another thing is what is especially experienced in the USA, that is so-called transshipping of honey or honey laundering. This is because of the reason that so far in the US there has not been a good legal regulation for honey. It's now starting to get better, so individual states of the United States, they make their own honey regulations. But basically, just in order to handle somehow the import of bad or fake or maybe adulterated honey into the US, they put in some anti-dumping duties, not legal regulations, but anti-dumping duties. And the problem is that in order to still ship some honey into the US, they ship it to a different country, maybe Taiwan or Thailand, Malaysia, relabeled it as Malaysian Thailand honey or whatever, and then ship it to the US without anti-dumping duties. Sometimes they also mix the honey with sugar syrup, so they can import it as a syrup or honey blend into the US, but then it's again relabeled as pure honey, and that is then really a big problem for the retail, for the honey industry in the US. Also, there are of course some alert notifications from the authorities, here for example for the US from the FDA, so serious concern that especially the names of the companies, they are mentioned if they are catched that some adulterated honey came into the US, the origin, publishing date. We also have that in the European Union, but the rapid alert system, it's more about antibiotic residues, pesticide residues, some toxic substances in food, but honey adulteration is not so much on the focus, and it's probably due to the fact that the state of labs, they don't have so good means, so good analytical capability to detect this type of adulteration. Yeah, we have also quite a new database from a website called fruitfraud.org. So they mention quite a lot of honey adulterated with sweeteners or sugar syrups, and this list is quite long. So there's a lot of findings of honey adulteration, and it's mentioned. So, as I mentioned before, I think one part of the problem that why it's not from the food control or food surveillance side so much in the focus is that the analytical capabilities in the official labs are not so good, they are not so well equipped. The equipment you need to detect honey adulteration is very expensive. You need a lot of different methods really to catch every type of adulteration, every type of sugar syrup. And this, of course, makes it very expensive in investment into this technical equipment. You need highly equipped people. So there are only few laboratories worldwide which have the experts, which have the knowledge, the experience in order to detect this type of food fraud. Maybe you can say honey adulteration is very complex. You have to use very sophisticated techniques. And here you see some of these techniques. Only as an example, if you use maybe some isotopic technique to detect sugar alteration as a more or less a general screening test, one instrument for this technique, it's almost 250 to 300,000 euros, only one instrument. So it's very, very expensive, and it's maybe not affordable for everyone. And this is also part of the problem that only a few specialized laboratories, like our laboratory for example, can afford to buy this equipment in order to offer this analysis. here's just further methods. So basically, you have a whole arsenal of different methods you have to use, and you have, on the one side, you have some general screening techniques which can detect honey adulteration regardless of the type of sugar syrup which may occur in honey, but they are sometimes, depending on the combination of sugar syrup and honey, not so sensitive. So you also need some specific methods for a specific type of sugar syrup in order to detect it more sensitively. So that's more or less the methods we use in our lab. I will not explain these methods into detail, it's probably too complicated to do that. But here you can see the sugar types, the number of analyzers we have, and the percentage of positive findings, 2012 and also then the first 8 months of this year. And you can see the rate of positives depending on the type of sugar syrup used. So the positive rates are maybe on a whole average, maybe 10% of all samples, 15% of all samples we get for analysis are positive for honey adulteration. Sometimes if you specifically look at adulterations with rice syrup, it's specifically more Asian problem. Then you can have in the raw honeys we get for testing maybe up to 30% or 50% sometimes, especially in the Asian samples, positive findings of honey adulteration. So the problem is quite big. Here are just some figures. I do not want to go too much into detail, but you can see the percentage distributed over the individual countries we have all over the world. And you can see, just simply see by looking at the countries, it's a global problem. It's not only occurring in one part of the world, it's occurring everywhere. So, yeah, you have, of course, you have, you have concentration more in the Asian, South European countries, maybe also in South America. But it's different depending on the method you use, depending on the sugar syrup, it's different. Of course, more C4 sugar may occur in South America, more C3 sugar like beet and wheat, so may occur in Europe or in Asia, also rice syrup. So it's different depending on the methods you use, which countries are more abundant or less abundant. You also have to consider, when looking at these countries, we do not always know that it's really honey coming from this country, or is it imported honey, so it can also be honey imported to this country. For example, if you see here Spain, they import a lot of Chinese honey, so it's probably imported Chinese and more than Spanish honey. So if you maybe ask me for a ranking where the most percentage of honey adulteration may occur, I would say the biggest problem is of course China, because it's very cheap honey, and I guess, as you saw before, the production, the huge production, much more than any other countries, so we have to look there very closely. Then the rest of Asia, then of course in the Near East, North Africa, because there's nearly no control, no legal regulation, so you can nearly sell everything as honey. Then the USA, but it's improving now, as far as I know, it's strongly improving. They're looking after that. They know it's a serious problem, so I think it's improving in Latin America, Eastern Europe, and South Europe. So that would be about the ranking, I would say, according to the regions of the world. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Have you got any questions at the stage from the floor for Dr. Lutz? Yes.
Lutz, have you had any experience with
Do you have a roving, excuse me one moment, do you have a roving microphone, or would you come forward perhaps? everybody can hear. Thank you.
Look, have you had any experience with the false positive beet sugar marker in any of your samples? Because we've had recently in New Zealand some beet sugar issues arising, international testing, but we don't use beet sugar. And so I'm just wondering how reliable some of these tests are, and if you could make a comment on whether you feel the right tests are currently in place, or whether you think there's some need for harmonisation of specific tests so that all countries can follow a unified plan.
This is indeed a big problem for adulteration testing. There are nearly no harmonized methods available. This is also maybe a problem for the food control authorities, because some or most of them, they say they have to rely on some harmonized or standardized tests published in ISO or European Norming Institute or German DIN or whatever. But actually they are not available. So, but still there is a possibility to use other methods which are accredited according to ISO, which are published and peer-reviewed methods in the scientific literature. You can also use them. And some methods like the isotopic methods, they are very well known, they are established. Then the specific methods using markers which are unique for the sugar syrup, for different types of sugar syrups which do not naturally occur in honey. I think they are also well established and acknowledged and accepted within the scientific community and also within the honey industry. But especially if you talk about the problem with beet sugar, it's very hard to detect sugar in honey, because there's nearly nothing in it except glucose and fructose. The other sugar syrups, like rice syrup, beet syrup, corn sugar, whatever you can think of, they have some specific markers with which you can identify the presence of these sugar syrups in honey. But for beet sugar, there are some methods in place you can use. But sometimes I have the impression they do not detect 100% of the beet sugar. Maybe 50, 60, 70%, maybe some 10, 20, 30% may pass the test without being detected. It can be due to two reasons. One reason is that the test is maybe not sensitive enough. The other reason is that these markers may not be necessarily from the plant itself, but from the production process of the sugar syrup. So it's depending on the brand of a sugar syrup, if you have a higher or lower concentration of this marker in the sugar syrup. So you really actually do not know what the percentage is. If you get a sample, an adulterated sample, usually you do not know which type of sugar syrup it may contain, which brand. So it's very difficult, and I must also say that all these methods we apply to detect honey adulteration, they are more or less only qualitative tests. It's very hard to quantify, because there are hundreds of different, sugar syrups. They all have different composition. As long as I can refer to one certain type of sugar syrup, if I know, okay, this certain type of sugar syrup is in honey, I can take it as a reference and quantify against it. But if I don't know, I can only tell, yes, it's present, or no, it's not. That's the only thing we can do.
The interesting thing is, though, coming back to your question, it was false positives. You said that there were false positives identifying that there was beet sugar, which is a product that's not used, it's not imported into New Zealand. So
yeah,
have you come across this before?
Yeah, but this is also something which you cannot rely on. You cannot rely on the statement because beet sugar is not grown in New Zealand, it doesn't exist. You know from other countries, for example, Argentina or other countries where you normally think of they don't have some rice syrup or they don't have some beet sugar, somehow these syrups are also imported into these countries, and the use milk or the positive findings may be rare, but they do exist. We have some proven cases where we even detect in countries where usually these types of sugar syrups are not produced, we see that type of honey adulteration.
Does this answer your question?
We only use cane sugar, and there's no beet sugar commercially imported into New Zealand.
So, and these were samples that were sent directly from New Zealand, so they could not have been adulterated offshore. Yes, that's
Another
very
possibility.
interesting.
Sorry. Another possibility may also be some beef feeding supplement. I don't know in the case of New Zealand, but I know of other beef feed that may contain beet sugar also. So if this beef feeding is exported to some country which doesn't grow any beet, it still may be the case that if some beef feeding occurs and it's cross-contaminated in the beehive with the honey, then we may detect some beet sugar adulteration. It's possible.
We have another question from the floor.
Yes, I'm from Austria. You may know the case. It's the same issue that the lady raised. So we had also false positive detection of the amylase parameters. So what I wanted to point out, of course, this is technique, and technique doesn't fail normally. But sometimes maybe also the basic work wasn't done to understand all the techniques. So we had false positive in one case. I worked on it with you half a year nearly, and I had help of you. Okay, thanks for it. But then you have to be cautious to make a general accusation, accuse that it's adulterated. In our case, we made all the analysis again and again, and we did not. It always the same comment: there is adulteration of syrup. So I know the beekeeper which was affected personally. We made a whole check what could be the reason for it. We even analyzed the syrup he fed, and you did not find anything of this amylase. I said, okay, if the original syrup does not have, the honey could not have. So at the end it came up that it was probably an interaction with metcalfa. But first, the beekeeper was accused of fraud. And that's to be cautious to such general accusation, because some things in all these analyses are not known well, and for as basis for accusation of fraud, it's of course a lot of fraud is done. Okay, but it's not to be cautious for general. Okay, always be beekeepers, because sometimes things behind.
No, I don't say the beekeeper is always a problem, but of course we have quite a lot of information that, well, in former years it was more the importer-exporter, the trader, which is in between, you know, but it's now going also sometimes to the beekeeping level, and we're always in a difficult position as a lab in between different trade partners. The trade partner wants yes or no decision from our side. And I agree with you that maybe not 100% is checked. So every analytical method has some confidence level, like 95% or something, and you cannot, you know, you never can reach 100%. And of course we have to trigger out where's the borderline. There will always be the case, and we discussed it also earlier with Manuka honey, and maybe we discuss it also later, where you have pure honey, which is a natural product and which can of course have natural variation where you maybe have the case that for a certain honey 95% or 90% pass and 10% fail despite they are authentic. But we have to make some, trade rules which everybody can compromise and live with. And I think we won't get to the point that we can pass 100% of everything, because then the criteria will be so wide, then everything goes through.
Just one addition to it. In that case we had, it was a career thing. If the beekeeper would he wanted to fulfill the parameters, the requirements of your parameters on the amylase, he could do it if he mixed the honey with syrup, because syrup had none.
So another question over here. Thank you.
No, it's not a question, just giving a comment also from our point of view. As some of you might quite well remember when Kalfarm honey turned up, which was a new type of honey because this insect was new in Italy. And we had a test, dextrine test that time, which was quite usual to test for adulteration, saying dextrine as higher molecular sugars detecting is indication of adulteration. And when this new honey type came up, all the honeys showed positive dextrine tests. And in the very beginning, everybody said this is adulterated honey. But we had to learn, it's natural development. We have new types of honey, also new types of honey imported, where we do not have any data. So we learn, of course, and it's a development. Sometimes it turns out a methodology which has been used for many years and has been approved as quite of good quality. And you come to a point where you say, okay, there's some new situation and this cannot be applied to this. This always happens. This is, as honey is a natural product, and you always have a development of it.
Yeah, your comment is very good, because all these adulteration methods, they are depending on databases. It's not like antibiotic or pesticide residues where you have a maximum residue level, maybe of 10 ppb, and you say yes or no, this is present or not. With all the adulteration methods, you make a database of authentic honeys. And of course, you cannot only build it up by time and make it, more broader by time. So over the years we try to make it better and better, but we are relying on these samples, on these databases, because we do not have any other comparison. We have no certified reference material for pure honey, because there are so many different types of honeys all over the world, and we have to include all of them in order to be sure about it. So there will be always occur some problems, and we have to adapt the methods time by time, maybe to some new honey types occurring, to some shifts due to climate or whatever. This is a part of the difficulty to use authenticity methods.
Some more questions from the floor.
Maybe if I may join into the choir, I'm Stefan Schwarzinger from Germany. We're also working on honey adulteration with a new different technique, and I can only support what Dr. Elflein and others have said here. You have shown that there are many different techniques focusing at one specific marker. And the problem, what is also seen in the case of other foodstuffs, is that in particular when it comes to commercial trade, where large volumes are traded, people become very creative when it comes to adulteration. People are understanding how individual techniques work. They try to find a way to work around it, and what has been shown in the past, for example, if you look at wines or juices, they find a way to work around, make adulteration and compensate for the parameter tested by another means. So what I think is extremely important is to use always several methods. Try to look at not only one parameter, look at several parameters. The backside of this, of course, is the cost for testing increases. I would also like to re-emphasize that I think when we develop a method, we spend a lot of time, a lot of money. It takes years until we bring a method to the market. We really try to understand in great detail what happens. On the other hand, there is always a gray zone, as you mentioned. You have maybe 95% confidence level. So there will always be some cases, I guess that's unavoidable, where one or two people may, their product may show up in those 5%. Nevertheless, I think most important is try to look at as many parameters as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more comment from the front here. The biggest problem, I come from a marketing background, and of course as soon as you get these analytical results coming out, it can destroy consumer confidence in the market, and it takes a long time to rebuild that. So we need to be very, very cautious about the information that is disseminated.
I think one of the biggest problems is honey adulteration has increased significantly since maybe 2010. That would probably be the explosion of international border testing, where the issues of Asian honey going into USA and fake USA honey as well has really turned the honey world on its ears. I think what we're seeing now, and what we will explore today in the honey adulteration session, is that there are established methods available to detect adulteration that have been around for a long time. But because the testing has increased so much in the last 2 to 3 years, we are now finding issues with these tests where they do not apply to certain honey types or to certain ways of producing honey that we may have thought. So that's why I come right back to my original harmonization. Maybe a team of people, and I don't know how this could be funded, need to reevaluate how each test is and make some good information for international border agencies, international testing laboratories to follow, to understand as the honey adulteration evolves.
Thank you very much. At this stage, perhaps we will, no, we have some more comments from the front here. Itia.
Just one, it's more a comment or a question. That you analyze a lot of honey with adulteration, and after, you receive samples coming from different parts of the world, but you check it's positive. But one of the biggest problem, I think, this honey is not destroyed. And how can we act to do something? Because if there is nothing, so you receive, you say to yourself, to the persons, no, you don't have to buy this honey. We must put in place, I think, a system with a correct reaction, with a classification of the persons, of the fiability of the sellers and these kinds of things. And this must be known by everybody. Because without this, it will continue to increase. I don't know if it's possible, but I think we have to go in this direction. A better traceability of the product, I think it's absolutely needed, actually.
Yes, of course, you are right. We are just a private laboratory, so we provide the results to the customer, and what the customer or the company, the importer-exporter does afterwards, we do not know. Maybe he rejects the goods and they are destroyed or sent back, but sometimes maybe they maybe traded afterwards, and it's just the result is just used for price discussions to get it at a cheaper price than originally negotiated. But I think then this is the part of the authorities, you know, the food control labs, and they have to implement some techniques to control that. That's on our part, of course. For some authorities, they send us samples, get the results, and then they may take actions, but it's not well developed at the moment.
For hygiene, when you have a problem, you have to say it. You know the system. Perhaps you can ask at the European level to the Commission to put in place this kind of system, reference alert system for this kind of system. Because it's a very big problem. You show on your map the problem of Spain. You say it's clear that when you can find this kind of adulteration, it's not Spanish honey, it's Chinese honey. Perhaps it is refused in Germany, and we know this. The boats arrive and they go back.
They go just to the next harbor.
Yeah, exactly. And they enter in Spain, and they are mixed with Spanish honey, and they are resold to on the market. We know, everybody here knows this. But we have to do something.
But not all the samples we test are for the purpose of the EU market.
Right.
Yeah. So,
You're right, but you know, I showed you some notifications in the alert system, but I think the last one was in 2011. So, you know, it's the local authorities and it's politics, and I personally, I do not have, you know, the influence. No, I think they know the problem, but maybe I don't know what the reasons are that it's not that in focus like other things.
We have to put the pressure.
You can try.
Just a comment.
One more question from the floor here. Microphone, perhaps you'd like to come forward.
Is it on? Yeah. I'm a small beekeeper from Belgium, and it scares me terribly, everything I hear here. And after Etienne's speech of this morning and what I hear now, I've written down a few things. And we can all shoot at the countries producing this adulterated honey. Yeah, but if there's no market for it, they will not produce it. So that's an economic principle.
Yes, of course.
So I think the solution is partly what we discuss here: check and destroy if it's not real honey. But it's also and even more to educate our consumers, and it's an easier task, I think, to educate our consumers and just to say, look. To create some awareness and to promote the short supply chain. So the short supply chain is we as a primary producer can sell directly to the consumer in our region. And then it's much easier to control and to remediate a problem if the problem is detected. You say, oh, you're using a wrong or you're using sugar and you're using it too late in the season, so it is adulterated by accident, your honey. So use another method. It's easier, and we have control over it. And the second one is what we see, what I see now from it's a honey when people are only willing to pay like €2.50. If you go to the Aldi, you pay €2.50 per kilo of honey. I can't compete with that, so I don't sell honey anymore. But we diversify already now, and I see that with colleagues also. We diversify. We try to sell other stuff like royal jelly, or even the bees itself. It's a good market, and there's much less work and much more money to win with it. So two things: we diversify, and the other thing is we have to educate our consumers. And if there's no more market, if nobody's buying that Aldi honey and that adulterated honey, we will have a market again.
You're absolutely right. I think it's in the head of the consumers. It's like with the biofuel discussion. You know, in Germany, nobody puts gas with biofuel, 10% biofuel in their tanks. They only use the traditional one because they don't want the rainforests to be cut in Brazil or whatever and shipped to Iowa or compete with food production. But these low prices in the retail market, especially with Aldi and Lidl and so on, it's not only with honey, it's with all food stuff. And you know, most important is cheap prices, and it's going on for years, and I find it difficult. Even maybe in Central Europe we are wealthy, you know. People have quite a lot of money to spend, maybe more money on honey, but maybe on other countries not. So it's a difficult problem, and I think we are working on that to educate the consumers to pay higher prices for the food, but so far it didn't work out too well.
Let's check Switzerland. They manage.
Switzerland is not really a good example.
It is a good example. They are proud of their own product, and they want to pay more for their own product because it's local.
Yeah, but it's you know.
There's examples.
May I just? I agree. I think to say if there's no buyer, there's also no chance to have this product on the market. On the other side, I must also say that we are also testing. You mentioned Lidl and Aldi honeys. I can confirm you that these honeys are tested 2 or 3 times, and that the supermarket have very strict specifications about quality. And another aspect is, for example, what could help, what our experience in Germany is, what really helps, we have consumer journals, like Stiftung Warentest and Ökotest, and they do regularly check also honey. And you can be absolutely sure that no packer risks to be put in a journal saying this is a bad product. So they are very, very much aware of this, and so they are very strictly considering that they are under supervision all the time of the public. So this really helps. These consumer journals.
Thank you, Gudrun. Yes, can you pass the microphone? Thank you.
Yeah, but I think that one of the biggest problems is the melting also of the honeys, because then you lose indicators. So I support Etienne, who says that you really need a traceability of all the pollens, all the honeys which are melted and so on. Because for the moment, when you go in the market and you see on the label that it comes from European countries and other European countries, you have really no traceability of that. So,
Country of origin marking and labelling as well. I think try and work out where this product's coming from. Yes.
Yes, I am from the honey trade, and I would like to comment, just as you said, that actually it's not the big players in the markets that have the bad quality of honey. If you want to sell to the big packers, you need very high standards of analysis, and we check at very many places during the chain. Normally, big and formal companies would not risk to put their name on a jar and have bad quality honey. And also, analyses are very expensive. You can afford to do analysis only for big amounts of honey. Yeah, I think the main problem is in little amounts of honey being traded, and also in the informal commerce. This directly selling on smaller markets, or no-name direct sales. Also, we notice a big difference between countries. Germany has always had very high standards for quality of honey, even though it's imported. There are some other countries that don't take it that seriously. But we cannot say it's a general problem for all players in the market. The trade has a very tough issue to control the quality. And if you are a good player, you have less resources than the people that are not a good player, because they do have a very high margin. So they have a lot of resources to do their thing, but we could not generalize. We just I think as an industry, it's important for us to try to have a fair market so that everyone has the same chances trading with good honey. In the US, there was a lot of issues with adulterated honey, but we have seen the result of the work of many packers that have been going together to have ethical manners of working on purchasing and on selecting honey. And at the end of the road, I think good honey is the best choice for everyone, and it will be rewarded because the world is changing in a way that no one wants to be confused, and the consumers are strong. Those are the ones that take the decision at the end. So if they are educated and they are insisting on the good quality they want, and we as an industry push the authorities to reinforce law, I think we can go the right way.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you, Lewis.
Just one add-on to Ms. Beutelsbacher. It's a good possibility if you know, the honey industry tries to initiate some traceability programs so they can put some label on their jar that this is a traceable honey. You can actually show where it comes from, and this is also then a tool for selling this honey at a higher price. So maybe we have to find some positive advertisements and some positive means to show the traceability that's really an authentic pure honey to the consumer, that he's willing to pay a higher price.
Thank you very much. It's been an interesting discussion at this stage. I'd like to call upon, we've had one of our colleagues here from the Asian side of the market. We've had quite a lot of comment here from Europe. Can I ask, please, Professor Yuan Chen from Taiwan Agricultural Society to come forward? Professor Chen is also from the National University Department of Biotechnology and Animal Science in Taiwan. Thank you very much.
Power. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chen, come from Taiwan, and I'm the Taiwan Agricultural Society president. Everybody knows C3 and C4 plants. We know the data collected from the C3 plants is carbon 13 value around minus 25, and adulterated sugar like corn syrup and cane sugar come from the carbon 4 plants. It's carbon 13 value around minus 10. And we can use the LAC method to check the carbon 4 plants sugar. So many countries they use like Brazil and Turkey, and in Taiwan these 2 years I do some study using the carbon 13 use method to detect honey in Taiwan. So let's about see my study. Yeah, everybody know this calculation formula. And I collect around 208 samples in Taiwan. I divide into the 9 group of the honey sample. And we can see the group 1 is Taiwan 2012 one longer honey. Longer honey is very special honey in Taiwan. It's a very good smell, very good taste. So we have a longer honey contest beekeeper proposed the best grade longer honey to join the award. So I take at least 40 samples to test. And the next year and this year, I also collect 2013 award longer honey. And because the longer honey is the Taiwanese favorite, so some people import it from Thailand to import the longer honey from Thailand. And I collect 2 years imported Thailand longer honey. And I collect Taiwan multi-flower honey. This honey obtained directly from the beekeeper. And we have Taiwan multi-flower certificate by the Taiwan Beekeepers Association. They give the certification logo, so maybe it's real. And I obtained the China honey from the Yangzhou University, and I do some studies from the commercial honey. This commercial honey is from the Taiwan market. So this is the official longer honey contest in Taiwan. We have the contest for 20 years ago. Sorry, this is the old profile. I have new. Can I change? Sorry.
Sorry, we'll just do a quick change of technology here. A quick change here. Any quick questions for the floor whilst we're organising this change of presentation? Comments from the floor at this stage? Certainly adulteration does seem to be a major problem today in the marketplace, and as I will reiterate that I think that honey adulteration is a bigger threat to our industry than Varroa. If the consumer loses confidence in our product, we're not going to the market. No market, people are not going to produce the product. And if we're having too much falsified product dumped into the market, then the profitability is gone, so the big people go out of business anyway. So, back to our speaker from Taiwan, Professor Chen.
Okay, sorry. And artificial, I would say the artificial serum may be produced from two kinds of the plants. We know the carbon 4 and the carbon 3. And we know that this carbon for sugar, like the corn, like the sugar canes. But we have found maybe from the beet, maybe from the cassava, starch. So this is the carbon 3 sugar. So we found by using the isotope, the method maybe cannot detect the carbon 3 sugar serum. Okay. So this is the data from the 2012 award longer honey, and all of the 40 sample is the 100% pure. So our honey really is the best. This is this year, 2013, award Longan honey. And the same, all of the 40 sample is 100% pure, so it's great. And this is the Thailand Longan honey. We can see all of the 19 sample and 100% pure, so it's good. But this year, the Thailand Longan honey, we found one sample. This is fake. We can see the delta carbon 13 value for honey. It is only the minus 13, and no any trace of the protein. I think that this is the protein assay is very easy to detect, but I think this is very important characteristic in the honey. So we can see no trace of the protein in this sample. So this is adulterated. And this is Taiwan honey sample obtained directly from the beekeeper. And we know that this grade of the honey is second grade, so maybe contaminated by with sugarcane feeding. So we can see the 6 sample, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and contaminated with carbon 4 sugar syrup. In Taiwan's, except the honey flow season, beekeeper must feed in the hive with sugar cane syrup. So I think this may be contaminated with the sugar syrup. So we can see the adulteration percentage around between 10% to 20%. So if I'm a businessman, I can do this because no benefit. So this is maybe contaminated by the beekeeper themselves. So this is Taiwan honey sample certificates by the Taiwan Beekeeper Associations. And we can see all of the 10 sample is 100% pure. So this year's Taiwan consumer, they searching by the logo of the certificates. And this is from China sample. We can see everybody say China may be fake, but this study maybe directly from the beekeeper. They all of the 100% pure. So I summarized the data in here. We can see this is the buffalo protein assays. We can see the Taiwan Longan honey. The buffalo protein assay is more higher. We can see the 2013 and the 2012. These 2 years, buffalo protein reached high to 1.36 milligram. And this is the Longan honey from Thailand. Thailand honey is maybe half the protein content. You can see the 0.64 and 0.75 milligrams. And we can see the China honey. The China honey is the protein content much lower. You can see the just only the 0.28 milligram. Okay, this is commercial honey. It's very interesting. We can see the I collect 12 samples. Sorry. in 2012. We can see the green, 1, 2, 3, 4. These samples, we can see the value of the carbon 13 in honey. It's normal, minus 25. And this, but they have no any trace of protein. So this is adulterated 100%. And this yellow, no any trace of protein, no protein, and no protein. This may be adulterated from the carbon 4 syrup, but we can see the 4 adulterated honey made by carbon 3 syrup. And so we can see if I use the honey mixed with the carbon 3 syrup, if only I use the carbon 13 method, it's pure. So we can see this sample. This is normal, protein is normal, and we can see the protein assays just only the 0.11. So it's pure? I guess no. Maybe it's use honey and mixed with carbon 3 like this, and we can see pure. But the protein content is very low. This is real pure protein content, and normal, pure. And this is 2013, this year. I analysis 30 samples. We can see again the green, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and no protein. But the value of the carbon 13 is normal. And the yellow, no protein. This is the yellow come from the carbon 4, but the green come from the carbon 3. So we can see some other sample like this. The label say this is pure honey, but we can see the carbon 13 value is normal, but the blood flow assay, the protein just only 0.03 milligram. So it's pure, and like this. This the protein contains just only 0.14. So it's very difficult to identify the adulterated the honey. So in the Taiwan consumer, they look for this logo because according to my assays, this logo certification issued by the Taiwan Beekeepers Association is 100% pure. And this is the Taiwan Award Longan honey. They have a formal pack. So you can see the medal. Yeah. So sugar syrup, we can see this is the second grade honey. So maybe it's a low level between the 10 to 12%, maybe contaminated by the beekeepers themselves. But I think this is okay because this sugar maybe come from the sugar cane. So sugar cane we eat every day, So this is not high fructose consumer. But mixed by the manufacturer, this is bad thing. And we can see that in the commercial honey in Taiwan, around 57% were adulterated honey. And we can see 15 samples were no trace of the protein. So this is 100% artificial. And we can see 9 of them belong to the carbon-3 syrup, and 6 of them belong to carbon-4. And we can see the 9 samples, they are mixed with around 30% to 70% adulterated with carbon-4 sugar. And this kind of adulterated sugar honey, we can determine by the carbon-13 pattern. But determination of adulteration of the honey with carbon-3 sugar is still a problem. And I propose the protein content may be a main alternative characteristic in the honey. But the protein content is vary from different nectar plants. Like the higher, more than 1.1 milligram per gram, like the Taiwan Longan honey. And some nectar plant may be mediate, like the Thai Longan honey. And some was lower, maybe rapeseed honey. So if I are a small businessman, I will choose this 50% honey and with high protein like this, and mix with the 50% carbon-3 sugar. So this is the super force pure honey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. Now, do we have any questions for Dr. Chen from the floor, please, or comment? Yes, at the back there.
Thank you. Just a comment. In Venezuela, we also have that problem. Then these false honey producers, they add urea to the honey when they know you are making protein content.
So you want to say
What do they add in Taiwan? I don't know.
Actually, I was looking for the manufacturer, they process the sugar syrup. I find 3 manufacturers. This is the major manufacturer to produce the high fructose the syrup. 2 of them they use the corn, but 1 manufacturer I know, and I do some analysis, and they use the cassava starch. Yeah, and I pretend I'm a consumer. I want to buy your product. They say our products many sell out to the honey packer. So I think that if I from the China, they say that they are the cereals may be manufactured with rice and wheat. So maybe Taiwan's problem is simply because just only 3 manufacturers. So I don't tell them the carbon-3 cereals may be is good for honey adulterated. But I can I was think maybe certification logo by the official or by the association, by the society is very important, because as consumer they can propose their honey to Intertech to check, and they pay so much money. So I teach our consumer, you can use a simple way to differentiate it, like use the tap water. You can drop in the honey and shake Bible on the liquid. This Bible comes from the protein. So if you the sample is 100% artificial, no Bible, no bumble, yeah. But 50% adulterated honey is still have the bubble. So just maybe a reference. So if you really want to know this is real, maybe propose your honey to Intertech.
Thank you very much. More comments, Dr. Rogers.
I just had a quick comment. I agree that it is very difficult when clever businessmen understand science.
Yeah.
It makes our life very difficult. But I think your label for approval of honey product in Taiwan is a good idea. And I think internationally, if each country could have something like that to certify, then it is government responsibility if the beekeeper makes problems for their country. In New Zealand, all honey product must have beekeeper or packer and a physical address, not PO box, blah, 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 the actual where they live. So should that product be tested and a problem, it can go directly back to the beekeeper or to the packer or exporter. This is very important, and perhaps that is why New Zealand product gives more confidence, because you can read the jar and go onto the internet and find exactly the farm, almost, where that honey is produced.
Yeah, in Taiwan, we just initiated the trace system from the apiary to the desk, so we can trace where they are from. And in Taiwan, I know the Manuka honey is we can see the UMF. It's great. It's so high price. Around small jars, 20 plus grade, $100. Yeah, but some Taiwanese people they don't like this kinds of honey because it's too strong. Taiwanese people they like the longer honey, very good smell. So maybe some other countries honey imported to Taiwan. Most of the people they don't like, but from Thailand, longer honey, the people they can not to differentiate. So the country origin is another problem in Taiwan, because Taiwan longer honey maybe 2 times of the price than the Thailand longer honey. So very few of the commercial sample, they say they come from Thailand. They also say, sorry, they are Taiwan product. So this is another issue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. Now, Perhaps we should shoot down to the southern hemisphere now. Oh, sorry, we have some comment from Europe.
Just one question for you.
One moment for
everybody.
Dr. Chen.
I'm surprised to see the labeling with false honey. I think it's not pure honey. So in Europe we have specific rules that you can't use the term honey if it's not pure honey. But in your case, you can find on the market something very strange. So my question, I think it will be useful to propose to the Codex this kind of rule. If we use honey, it must be natural honey. And you have some rules like this in your country?
Yeah, the honey, the definitions is it must nature from the native plants or honey too. I show this data just only for my study because I'm not official government. So if I show the data to the media, so some honey picker, they will kill me because the business dropped down. So I'm afraid.
Thanks very much. Dr. Rogers, can we perhaps ask for your presentation next? Now I'll perhaps ask the floor. Come on up and we will get a show of hands because Karen has two presentations and there's obviously a great deal of interest in Manuka honey as well as her other results.
Well, I have two presentations. One will be a little bit more expanded on this afternoon at 5 o'clock in the plenary session, and that is on the problem of false positive results in honey, especially the Manuka honey, which is being sent and exported. And then the other one is a shorter information about what our New Zealand government is trying to do to ensure that consumers only buy real Manuka honey and not fake Manuka honey, as we read in the international news recently about fraudulent Manuka honey and being sold in jars. So, fraud or sugar adulteration, what do you prefer?
I'm feeling at this stage, perhaps following the discussions on labelling, that maybe we have the second presentation on Manuka. Yes, on labelling and how we can try and solve this issue. Certainly it seems to me that consumer education and labelling with followed up with test results is going to be the only way that we can perhaps tackle this problem.
So in New Zealand, as you're aware, we sell Manuka honey. It is a special honey which has some unique properties above many other honey. As you know, most honey has peroxide activity, and in New Zealand, the Manuka honey has an extra antimicrobial activity beyond peroxide. When you negate the peroxide, there is still some antimicrobial activity, and we call this a unique Manuka effect, or a unique Manuka factor. And we use this on our labels, and we label our honey 5+, 10+, 15+, and that is an increment of efficacy of this antimicrobial property. We also have another system in New Zealand called MGO, and that stands for methyl glyoxal. Methyl glyoxal is the active ingredient, the key active ingredient. There are many little ingredients, but methyl glyoxal is recognized to be the biggest active ingredient in the antimicrobial activity. So we label this MGO 100, 250, 500. So it's a little confusing, but there is a correlation between the two. Now, recently in the UK market, and especially Hong Kong, the governments are doing some check on the label claim. And the label claim on the jar may say 10 plus, and we can test to see if you actually get what you pay. Because of course, Manuka honey is very expensive. The higher the rating, the bigger the price. So we test the claim on the label around activity, and recently we understand that the claim on the label does not always meet what is in the jar, inside the jar. And this has two problems. One is where the beekeeper or the packer puts the honey in the jar and it is actually at that label. But over time, that activity can decrease. Okay, that's the first problem. So a shelf life problem. So back in New Zealand, we try to work on that. The second is where they put the honey in the jar and label it with an activity, and it's not at that activity because it never was at that activity. It's falsely labeled, and that can arise from two things. The beekeeper or honey person does not get it properly tested before export, and maybe in the past that was an issue, but we are very strict now about what can be exported, and that does no longer happen. The other issue is where honey product gets exported from New Zealand, and the seller who receives the honey is then labeling the honey, and that can be labeled incorrectly. In fact, in some instances, we believe that there is possible mixing of Manuka honey with other honey going on. We export around 8,000 tonne of Manuka honey every year, but there is rumour that the market has 10 to 12,000 tonne of Manuka honey available internationally for sale. So the laws of physics, somehow transforming 8,000 tonne to 12,000 tonne means that there is some honey coming in. So the New Zealand government now want to make sure that all honey sold can be traceable back to the product. It can be identified as New Zealand Manuka honey, and this is what we try to do now. And so our Ministry for Primary Industries, they are considering options on how we can define Manuka honey. And this is because of these recent fake reports in international arena where the honey is not actually wholly Manuka honey at all, or it doesn't meet the label claim. So we want to do that to improve consumer confidence and to ensure we don't have export or industry problems for New Zealand. Okay, so the first option that we were looking at is potentially using, as we do for Codex, for monoflora standards, using pollen count. If the pollen is there at a certain level, and we are perhaps considering 70% Manuka pollen as the minimum level you must have, then that is good. If you can consider that most product would have 70%, if people try to add another honey, then that brings the level of pollen down. So that would be a good thing. We could detect that, and we could detect the mixing of Manuka with other honey. The other honey option is the methylglycol content, where we check to see the label that only Manuka honey, which has some antibacterial activity attributed to methylglycol, can be sold as methylglycol. This raises some problems because in New Zealand some beekeepers believe they have true Manuka honey, but it does not have methylglycol in it. So this is a very interesting problem for New Zealand beekeepers as well, because we have people say, yes, we want methylglycol to be only for Manuka, and people who say, but I don't have methylglycol, but I do have Manuka. The other option is where we can have either or, so either pollen or methylglycol, or maybe even both together. We also still have the problem when New Zealand honey is being sold on peroxide content because it doesn't have the methylglycol. These people are saying, well, we have total peroxide, but all your honey has total peroxide. Why should we make claims for something which is naturally found in honey? So just to briefly cap on why should we use pollen. Codex is an established method, so we have good guidelines for determining pollen. It is easy to identify pollen. Many laboratories can be trained to do that. Many beekeepers can have microscopes to see pollen, and people overseas can check very easily. And if we make some minimum pollen count, then definitely we cannot add other honey type to Manuka to improve the yield of Manuka, because that will dilute the pollen content, so there will not be 70% anymore, there might be 50, 40, 30%, so that's good. However, in New Zealand we have another species very similar, a sister species to the Manuka plant. It's called Kanuka. It has pollen which looks very much the same. Kanuka, however, is not Manuka. It doesn't have methylglyoxal, and it has a slightly different color and slightly different taste. So beekeepers can collect both and put them together because they flower. And so because you cannot discriminate between Manuka pollen and Kanuka pollen, it's very hard. You can also filter honey as well. Manuka pollen is very small. You put a bigger mesh in, you take away the big pollen, you leave the little pollen. Of course, you concentrate the Manuka pollen. So you can easily improve your honey to look more like Manuka. You can also collect Manuka pollen from the bees, from bee pellets, from the beehive, and you can disperse that into your honey and improve the pollen content of your honey. So maybe this is not so good either. However, the biggest problem is some of the highest active Manuka honey, the most expensive one, has very low pollen count. Should we not sell this anymore? This is the very honey that people in China and USA and Europe will pay 100, 200, 300 euro. Methylglyoxal. It is a very good marker. It is a single marker. You can do chemical analyses very fast. You can detect it. Excellent. It is established. We have done international testing with different labs around the world. Everyone can do this. It's fast. It's cheap. That's what we need for a chemical marker. However, again, if your Manuka honey has no methylglyoxal, you can no longer sell it as Manuka honey. That is a problem for some beekeepers. The other problem is you can go to a chemical supplier and buy methylglyoxal. Synthetic methylglyoxal. You can tip it into your honey, mix it up, and voila, you have an active honey. We have done this with clover honey. We take clover honey, we put in methylglyoxal, it works just like Manuka. But is this real Manuka? No, of course it's not. So we need to be sure that you don't do that, and we have developed methods to be able to detect the methylglyoxal, because there must be certain ratios of methylglyoxal with other markers, and if you don't have all the other markers, then we can detect adulteration. However, you can go and buy the precursor molecule to methylglyoxal, and that's called DHA, and you can tip that into your syrup, feed it to the bees, and the bees eat it just like as if they'd eat the nectar with the DHA and transform it to honey. So there are ways to do these things. And of course, as we heard from Professor Chen, clever businessmen will make clever solutions. So we need to be very aware of, if we start to define a honey only on 1 or 2 markers, that will again force people to adulterate. The greedy people will be forced to adulterate and invent new things for us, the scientists, to have to worry about. The other issue too with methylglyoxal is that it changes according to temperature and rainfall and the climate conditions where your Manuka tree grows. So one year you may not get such high Manuka methylglyoxal as another. So maybe your honey is Manuka one year and it doesn't qualify the next year. Very upsetting for beekeepers, I'm sure. So there's many pros and cons for both. But at the moment, we have no easy solution. We have to make some fast decisions for interim guidelines, and then we have to come behind with some more research to make proper definition of Manuka honey. We have many questions we still need to answer, and if any of you have good input or good suggestions or just comments to me today, I'm very interested to hear from you about that. We also need to consider other techniques, as people are saying, protein content, chemical markers, isotopes, sugar profiles. The thixotrophy, Manuka is very thick honey. You tip the honey upside down, it won't fall out. So this is a very good indicator of Manuka as well. Conductivity, and of course get back to codex and the other physiochemical properties. Are these adequate to define Manuka honey? Is there one thing that can define Manuka honey? Must we have 10 things? I think Manuka honey is a very unique honey, but there are other honeys around the world that are unique like Manuka. So maybe you have these issues in your country too. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Interested in comments from the floor to this presentation. And the stage, oh look at that, you've answered all the questions. There have certainly been problems, as we discussed before, with the false positives coming through with the testing. Can we just perhaps talk a little bit about that whilst you're on the floor? How long's your presentation on it?
I can just talk without the presentation.
Right, we'll talk on that for a moment.
So for New Zealand Manuka honey, when we sell Manuka honey overseas, it undergoes several testings. Intertech, QSI, Nanjing Animal Plant and Food Inspection Centre, US FDA and various associated labs, they are all testing our honey when it gets exported. Manuka honey recently, because of the extra increased testing, has started to fail regularly on C4 sugar adulteration. In New Zealand, yes, we feed C4 sugar to our bees, of course. We must. In winter, we have no nectar available, it's cold. Our bees need some sugar syrup to survive the winter. I'm sure many people from cold countries must feed as well. That is not the problem. But the problem is where we do have genuine Manuka honey and it has a failed C4 sugar problem, where there's been no sugar feeding up to the nectar flow or minimal sugar feeding that shouldn't affect the honey. So we had a problem of trying to understand why. I started this research 3 years ago and we took pollen out of honey because we thought there was a pollen contamination. When you isolate the protein in honey, you're also isolating pollen and insoluble material. And we thought maybe that could contribute to the difference between the honey and the protein isotopes that we need to see nice and close together, and they start to change them. And for a while, yes, that did work. But we still keep finding some Manuka honey which fails C4 sugar test. And what we find after a while is that when we look at the unique antibacterial property and we look at the different levels from low activity, medium activity, high activity, we find our highest activity honey, almost all of them are failing. Our low activity honeys, only a very few, hardly any are failing. And we find that as our honey matures, the bees, they eat the DHA and that converts to the methylglyoxal over time. Now this reaction, which builds up the activity in Manuka honey, is also changing the protein in the honey. So we are not adding sugar, but when you start with a fresh honey, very low sugar, and the activity grows over time as it does for Manuka honey, so do the sugars. And this is a problem because virtually all high activity Manuka honey will eventually fail the C4 sugar test. Should we stop selling Manuka honey to the world? The problem is at the moment we cannot export hardly any of our Manuka honey because everything, our laboratory tests, we are the key testing laboratory for C4 sugar in New Zealand. Virtually all high UMF honey that we test is failing. We cannot export it. So what do beekeepers have to do at the moment? They either have to add another honey type or another manuka with lower sugar, lower activity, bring the activity down, bring the sugar down. So we're having to blend, which is not adequate. We need to change the rules and make an exception for manuka, and I will talk more about this afternoon, but perhaps for adulteration today this is something we could consider. Are there other honeys that need exceptions? Because manuka for C4 sugar, we have the evidence now that high UMF, high activity honeys will virtually always fail this test.
Thank you very much, Karen. Do we have any questions just before Karen leaves the floor? Otherwise, perhaps we'll call a wee break for coffee, and I'd like to see you all back in, we'll say 15 minutes or 20 minutes. 11:15, I have speakers to follow up from India, from Southern Hemisphere again, from Argentina, and then shoot back to Europe for a wind up. But I'd like to thank you all very much. Fantastic. Back here at 11:15. Back, perhaps it's those queues trying to register for a cup of coffee. But I think we must start away because we still have a number of speakers that can help us with this very important topic. Our next speaker is Dr. Dhananjay Wakili from India, from the School of Biotechnology. He has 40 years experience in the beekeeping industry and honey quality in India. Welcome.
Thank you. I am Dr. Dhananjay Wakile from Center of Excellence in Application Biotechnology of Baramati in Maharashtra near Mumbai, India. I have worked for more than almost 40 years in honey and beekeeping, and mainly promoting scientific beekeeping in India. Now after retirement from Government Institute, Central Bee Research and Training Institute, I am joining BSBT. So please, my presentation will start. We have been listening since last 3-4 days about the adulteration and other problems in beekeeping from various countries, China, Taiwan, Thailand, Asian states, as well as European countries also. So here in India, I will make some small presentation. This is our institute, Center of Excellence in Application Biotechnology. Next, please. Next, please. How this works. We have various research programs and academic programs in BSc, MSc Biotechnology, including apicultural biotechnology. We are conducting various training programs under our BioVillage program, which covers organic agriculture and scientific beekeeping. So various levels of training, 1 day, 2 day, 5 days, 7 days and 15 days training programs. And our team is Dr. Sushma Chapalkar is director, and myself and our one associate scientist. Then we have conducted and covered more than 104 villages within our district, and they are all farmers. Their beekeeping is mainly for pollination and not for honey production. But all other areas in India, there are 24 states which are producing mainly honey, and beekeeping is mainly intended for production of honey. Various research projects, as I told you, they are conducted in morphometry and geophylometry of Indian bees. We have various variety of species in India, so we are studying their variations, then how it will be managed for benefit of farmers and benefit of beekeeper. Then also about the bee products, their quality control and their processing and value addition. We are promoting various literature because for the education of the consumers and education of farmers, there is no much literature available in local languages. We have our more than 40 languages, regional languages, so everywhere, region to region, this language varies, and we have to translate our material into that language so they understand and practice in scientific beekeeping. And then because of pollination, we have to generate the awareness for how the benefit of bees to crops, and so far they have no much knowledge about the pollination to the farmers. Still there is some thinking that bees are snatching flowers and destroying flowers, so their crop is affected. But now with this our continuous monitoring and continuous awareness, they are slowly getting demand for beekeeping, for pollination and honey production. We have in India fortunate to have more than 5 to 6 varieties of honeybees, not only 1 or 2 varieties. So one is native Apis cerana indica, then Apis dorsata is wild bees, Apis florea, and Trigona, that is stingless bees. We are also practicing, some commercial beekeepers practicing Apis mellifera, and now there is a demand for bumblebees also, which are also native to India for pollination service. Thus, likewise, we are having honey also from various types of bees, and there is a variation in yield of these honey and variation in their quality and other parameters from the source. Apis cerana, Apis mellifera, their yield also varies. Mellifera is, of course, yielding very high in commercial beekeeping, 20 to 30 kg per hive. That is from one migration, and there are some beekeepers, commercial beekeepers, who are migrating their colonies 5 to 6 times in a year. So they are getting even up to 100 kg per colony yield from various sources. And if you see at the bottom, the major honey sources in India, unifloral sources, if you count, there are more than 242 sources. This much diversification is there in unifloral honey sources. But commercially, only 30 to 35 unique monofloral honeys are collected and marketed. Out of which, very important, lychee honey, jamun honey, mustard honey, sunflower honey, these honeys are marketed and they are very popular. Some honey is also collected from Trigona, stingless bees, and Florea, small bees. Total production of India is estimated to be 90,000 tons, and we presume that this is hardly from the 10% of total potential in India. So still 90% of potential of honey is still to be tapped, which has very great potential, and even if it is doubled, we can lead the world in honey production as well as in beekeeping. Only it needs to be organized, because our beekeepers are not organized. They are all doing privately and they are all scattered and in remote places and other villages. So it is having the tentative estimated production, estimated beekeepers, and most honey which is coming from the forest is under forest department, which has no record of the production from dorsata bees, that rock bees, which are very giant bees. They are producing honey as well as they are producing wax also in very large quantity. Composition is very much compared with the Apis mellifera honey and any other honey from cerana and mellifera, and they are well up to the standards as per the international standards. Simple test, as morning somebody was referring, that our honey has very high tendency of granulating. 90 to 95% honeys are granulating and forming a granules which are uneven. Sometimes they are partial, sometimes they are half, and sometimes some bottles are completely granulated and they are very hard. That honey is very hard crystals. So there is a simple test suggested by us that honey, when it is poured in water, if it is pure honey, it will straightway settle at the bottom and very clear layer will be formed. If it is mixed with sucrose, main adulterant in India is sucrose, cane sugar, because cane sugar growing is more there and cane sugar is very cheap, so it is very easy to adulterate. Similarly, jaggery, that is also a cane sugar product, that is also added into honey, and it can be detected with very easy simple test by putting it into water, and immediately that adulterated honey water will be turbid and white layer will be formed. So this is simple test, but again we suggest and advise to go for laboratory test for confirmation. We have various standards, and according to those standards, all honey has to fulfill the requirement of Indian standards. Agriculture Marketing Advisor has standards. Bureau of Indian Standards also has standards for internal market. For export markets, we have Export Council of India. ECI has laid down specifications, including for antibiotics and pesticides limits. Simple honey testing kit we have developed for beekeeper who can immediately judge the quality of honey in the field itself. It is a layman's operation who can do laboratory test in the field, which will detect the moisture with moisture meter, and sugars with honey testing kit, reducing sugar, that is glucose, fructose and sucrose also. He can detect all the 3 major sugars, and he can also judge for the feast test. Feast test, because for HMF it was suggested hydroxymethyl furfurandiate, it goes on accumulating by storage, by processing or temperature, and also by addition of sugar, that is common cane sugar. So this can be detected with simple HMF test. So this honey testing kit is very popular among the beekeepers, and many beekeepers are now who are producing honey for market. They are using this honey testing kit. Quality standards laid down by the Indian government, they are all government-led standards, and they are strictly followed by the beekeepers and the consumers and sellers in the shops who are selling those. If they fail in any test or any criteria, that immediately that sample is withdrawn from the market and spoiled. So our main intention is to educate the people, because consumer and farmer and beekeeper producer himself has to be educated and generated awareness for the benefit of bees, beekeeping, and the product value of his product, honey, wax and pollen, which he is producing, and he has to produce scientifically so that there will not be any contamination by intention or even by accident. Processing is a very new concept in India. We have developed honey processing for Indian honey, being a tropical conditions, and practice of beekeepers to collect honey from unsealed combs before maturity, before capping. So the moisture content was very high and it used to get fermented. And once fermentation starts, the accumulation of granules also starts. So granulation, fermentation goes together. Therefore, processing is very important, like pasteurization of milk. Now we are recommending that every honey has to be processed immediately after extraction within a week or so. And we have developed a special processing unit for Indian honey, which will liquefy granulated honey. First stage, then it will go for filtration, preliminary filtration, then it will go for final microfiltration, and then to kill the yeast cells due to fermentation and due to very high moisture content, yeast cells will develop very rapidly. So yeast cells are killed in this fermentation process at 60 degrees centigrade maximum temperature, and time is regulated. So 5 minutes or below that, and if temperature is increased to 65 or 70, time also will be reducing 5 minutes to 1 minute. Even flash heating processing is also suggested to some honey in commercial level. Then training in laboratory for testing honey. Main is geographical origin and botanical origin is determined under microscope, and there are standard slides which will compare with the source, and immediately will judge the honey is genuinely collected from that source or not. And then awareness and training, and develop that honey. Then immediately after from harvesting, post-harvest and quality control, marketing is there, because the marketing of honey is very important in honey in India. And honey is consumed mostly as a medicine. Traditionally it was considered as a medicine. Even in honey bottle is there in every house. There is nobody will immediately go for using that honey, because they want to confirm that this is pure honey. And if somebody recommends, grandmother, grandfather, or their old homeopathic or Ayurvedic doctor will recommend that honey has to be taken, then only they will take the honey. So this market, which is only restricted to, which was recently restricted to the patient and doctor as a medicine, but now it is recommended before just 4 or 5 years, when we recommended that honey is a food, and then Ministry of Agriculture also included that honey into a natural food, and then they are regularly conducting honey buyers meet, and there is a regular marketing of honey now in practice. Then national level, state level, regional level, because our country is very vast. So everybody cannot be reached and approached. So they have their own local organizations and conducting meetings and seminars, workshops for latest technology in beekeeping, scientific technology in beekeeping, and promoting farmers to adopt beekeeping, because so far it was only tribals and in forest it was practiced. Now it is coming to the agriculture, and farmers are also now started practicing beekeeping. Indian government, Bureau of Indian Standards are laid down about 20 standards on hives, frames, extractors, and smokers, and every beekeeping equipment, including honey processing, and then traveling bee boxes, extractor of honey, wasp trap, all those items which are required for beekeeping, they are standardized, and those standards as per for the material, for the specifications, and for the requirement of that region, they have to be use standard items only. So this is all about our present scenario of honey and quality control. And as far as our adulteration problem, because today's the subject is adulteration. In India, the adulteration in local market, hardly very little adulteration, and whatever adulteration is sucrose, cane sugar, is immediately detected in the laboratory as per the EGMAR standards. If it is more than 5%, then it is taken as adulterated honey, supported with feast test and enzyme activity. So enzyme activity is also playing very good role in detection. C3, C4 is very advanced, and it is only going to the very large commercial beekeepers or commercial honey traders who has to apply this C3, C4 test. And because I said granulation was considered by our people as adulteration, because the honey is liquid honey is in demand, and people have in mind that pure honey means it has to be a liquid honey. So when there was a demand for liquid honey increased, automatically liquid invert sugar syrup and all, it started coming in the market, because honey was not in liquid. Which our original honey, natural honey, was in granulating. Consumers were rejecting it, discarding that it is not a honey, it is a adulterated sugar, adulterated with sugar, because sugar is settled down. When we have taken special awareness programs, special education to the farmers, consumers, and showed them that what is pure honey and what is adulterated honey, and granulation is a physical change because of temperature and other things, and just by keeping in water, warm water, it will re-liquefy. So it was supported even by many agitations that government centers also selling adulterated honey. Then it was convinced, and now there is a reverse trend. See the effect of education and awareness. Now people are demanding this granulated honey, because granulation is a indication of purity. It's a sign of purity. So now everybody understands that it is a physical change. Second thing, we also recommended to put on the label itself. Every honey has to have a pure honey label. When it is honey only, it is passed under the honey, natural honey, as per these standards. And we have suggested a special statutory warning, like smoking is injurious to health. The honey granulates is a natural process, natural phenomena. Keep in warm water to re-liquefy. So immediately people are now, consumers are now convinced, and they are using even granulated honey. In fact, now as per the new development in honey processing, the process, dice process for cream honey, then granule honey, we are recommending for granulated honey. Mustard, sunflower, and most of the honeys are granulated, so they can go into this form. So beekeepers are also convinced, and now this process is continuing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for explaining the systems in India. Do we have any comments or questions from the floor, please? Ah, look at that. I thought with coffee they'd have lots more to say. But at this stage it looks excellent, so thank you very much. Next, I would like to ask our colleague from Argentina, Norberto Garcia, to come forward and comment on the adulteration problems as we figure them from Argentina.
Well, thank you very much to the organizers to be able to be here and participate of this roundtable. I represent Nexco, the main Argentine honey exporting company of Argentina, and I also represent the International Honey Exporters Organization. I try to describe our point of view of the honey adulteration issue. In some way, in full accordance with Etienne Lunon's presentation, if we look at the official statistics of international honey world production and trade, we are surprised to see how officially honey production has been growing during the last years. But if we deeply look at individual country production of the same official statistics, we see how they are going down and down due to the advance of agriculture. I invite you to see individual by country statistics, and you will find that only one main producer of honey is actually officially incrementing honey production. I leave the conclusions for you. Honey is and will be a more and more scarce and expensive to produce product. A brief view to the European market. Since 2010 and a little before, the European market replaced South American honeys by Chinese honey. But a different behavior has been observed between Germany and the rest of the European Union. While the rest of the European Union showed lower levels of importation of countries just like Argentina, Mexico, Ukraine, Chile, and Cuba, Brazil, etc. The rest of the European Union, not Germany, showed a significant importation rates from China. A quite different behavior, I repeat, between Germany and the rest of the European countries. Adulteration is the focus today, and I think 3 or 4 years ago the United States took the lead in adulteration issues, and I hope the European market in a few time may follow some similar ways. What happened in the US market during the last years? As you see, 2010 and very active actions in the legal sense were taken by the US actors of the honey market. As you can see, the US imports changed sharply, decreasing Asian imports and increasing the rest of America imports. Obviously, the honey that does not go to one part of the world goes to the other parts of the world. As I said, the US has taken the lead about food safety and food defense concepts during the last years. Food Safety Modernization Act was put into law 2 years ago and is still developing. Now, they define what they call economically motivated adulteration. Let us read what does it mean. It's a fraudulent intentional substitution or addition of a substance in a product for economic gain. When a food is sold to a customer, to a trader, and the people who sell that food knows that it is not up to standard, that shows intentionality, and that's why they call it an economically motivated adulteration. there is intentionality. It's a different page when we compare to food safety. Which factors contribute to these EMA events? Tighter economic conditions, price increases, and global food shortages. Think about honey. Price increases, good demand, lower offer. So conditions are perfect for the storm. And you are living the storm here in Europe. From the previous speeches, we heard about two important data. One by Mr. Bruno, who talked about the surprisingly lower prices of some honeys that are now imported to Europe. Mr. Eiflen gave very neat data of the surprisingly high percentage of honey adulteration imported to Europe. Of course, the laboratories are not the police. They develop new tools for the governments. The beekeepers and the laboratories must work together in the future, because one day will arrive that all these adulteration cases will go to the justice. And two key elements, low price and scientifically based data, will make it impossible for some actors to say that they did not know. Let's try to work together, beekeepers, honest beekeepers all around the world. We are colleagues. We're surprised to see how we are thinking alike. The beekeepers, the laboratories, honest honey traders. Let's help our governments. They need our help. Let's work together to stop this fraud. Thank you very much.
Yes, I agree entirely, and thank you. Your words are so true that hopefully the honest traders and the honest producers can somehow collaborate together to stop this absolute fraud. Do we have any comments and questions from the floor, please? Roberto. They all sit on their hands now, thank you. A little short one.
No question, just a short comment. Just a short comment to what you showed us, why Germany has a considerable lower volume of Chinese honey coming in. I know from our daily work and with the packers in Germany, since we had this scandal with Blanc and Nicole in Chinese honeys, the German supermarkets have very strict specifications defining no Chinese honey in our shelves. So you won't find any packer who packs Chinese honey in a blend which is for the consumer. You will rarely find Chinese honey for industrial purposes, but not for end product which is for the consumer consumption.
So you're saying that the supermarkets are doing their own tests to ensure this?
Very strictly. I mean, we do it regularly, on a regular basis.
Sure.
And they have strict specifications for testing. I think Intertech as well can confirm. Testing everything. Residues, all types of adulteration, all types, if you have new methodology, of course. And in any case they find something suspicious, they will ask the packer to take it off from the shelf. So I agree to Norberto, because in the beginning we started maybe the discussion saying all these cheap supermarket goods, this is not the way. Yeah, the way is to say we have black sheep in all stages. We have black sheep beekeepers, we have black sheep packers, we have black sheep importers, exporters. Yeah, exactly. We have to divide it in the honest ones who work carefully and correctly, and divide the ones which do not, on all stages. Yeah.
So we hear about this flood of fraudulent honey that's coming into Europe. It's not ending up in your supermarkets in Germany. Where is it ending up?
I don't know where it's ending up. I can tell you, if you look at the Eastern European countries, yeah, and the packed material, you can go to Spain, to Italy. Yeah, I mean, I think personally it's a pity if a good Italian honey or Spanish honey is blended with Chinese honey.
It's crazy.
Yeah, for me personally, it's crazy. Yeah.
Right. And very sad. So more comment here from Dr. Karen Rogers.
A couple of comments actually. The honey in New Zealand is 100% New Zealand honey. It's illegal to bring honey into New Zealand. We cannot put Chinese honey into our honey. Everything you buy with label from New Zealand is only from New Zealand. Now, in the case of Australia, you can have honey with made in Australia, and it can have 51% Australian honey blended with 49% honey from other origin. Most of that other origin is coming direct down to Australia. So I'm not saying all Australian honey is blended, many products aren't, but honey is $2 a kilo in Australia, where beekeepers in Australia produce honey for $5 a kilo. It's no contest. The other area of where does all this adulterated honey go, or where does all this Chinese honey go? There are so many new products coming on the market now that contain honey. It used to be honey was in a jar, you'd spread it on toast, that was it. But added value products, functional products with honey are using up a lot of the other honey that cannot go necessarily into jars. It doesn't meet quality standards. And this is a big concern, because these honeys that are adulterated, or pesticides, or residues, or trace heavy metals, all these things, maybe is not food tested to be quality to go into pure honey to spread on toast, but when it's disguised in other products, this poor quality honey is actually getting into our food chain. And it is of great concern that you can go and dump your honey that you cannot sell to a food producer who incorporates it into their breakfast cereal, or their shampoo, or their drinks, or whatever. And you're still eating that honey one way or another.
Thank you very much.
Now, may I comment?
Oh,
if possible. It's a good remark, I think, that you said industrial honey or honey for industrial purposes is worldwide not defined. I think it's really bad that the Codex did not define yet what is industrial honey. This is really bad. Yeah, we have defined it in Europe, and also in Europe we have a definition what is industrial honey, and also industrial honey is not allowed to be adulterated, contaminated, whatever. Yeah, only honey overheated, or maybe fermented, or with a foreign smell and taste can be used as industrial honey, but not adulterated honey, not contaminated honey. And if this would legally work worldwide to define also industrial honey should not be adulterated, you could also decrease these problems.
So the specifications for industrial honey, the Codex you're saying does not have a specification for industrial, but the EU regulations do? Right. Thank you for that clarification.
Maureen, can I just
Yes,
comment? I think what we can see today, we can find a common agreement with very good, not the black sheep where you have beekeeper, what you say, it's completely correct. So I think that today with APIMONDIA, if we can find an agreement with the persons who are working in the correct terms, we can send a letter to the Codex to propose what you propose is true, and to propose to find a system to limit this kind adulteration everywhere in the world, because it's for the survival of all the beekeeping sector. I think that today we have to do something very quickly. And so perhaps we can find a letter and we can send this for all the sector at the world level. It will be very great things, if you agree.
Of course I agree, and we will write that letter, of course.
Perhaps we can, if we can have your help to the science Intertech to prove and to give a lot of evidence to prove what you tell.
Yes.
If we analyze this kind of thing, we have 80–90% of adulterated product or very wrong product. We can constitute a dossier, a real with the basis to defend some such work at the world level. But we need this, and we are here today to arrive to this kind of results. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now, there were two other speakers who had indicated they were going to join us today, and I'm not sure whether they are in the room. There was Nicola Kizek from Croatia. Is she with us today? No, Nicola's not here. And also Salah Nezhed from Iran, I believe. Yes. Fantastic. If you would like to come forward, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. Now, if you would give an introduction on your background, would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. I'm Saleh Nezhed. My family background is beekeeper, son by son. I'm originally Persian. I'm from Iran. And I'm very glad to be in APIMONDIA 2013. This is the first time I joined this big conference. I became member for individual in 2006 for APIMONDIA, and now I just want to share some information with you. My father and beekeepers, usually they distinguish between fake honey or adulteration honey with natural honey by only tasting, and always I surprised how possible that they just taste it. And even sometimes, as an example, my father told me this honey from this flower or this region in this mountain, I just quite surprised. And I focused to know more about it, and in my PhD study I work with chromatography systems, some machine like LCMS, LCMS-12, to find some marker as antioxidant or polyphenols, some flavonoids, or some enzyme, to see if it exists, these markers in honey. We can say this honey is pure or not. So, as you can see, here we are talking about adulterated honey, and which made by hand with, for example, with honeybee, synthetic honeybee. You can see the design, but it's very, I think, nice design. And the pure honeybee that produce organic honey. As you know, there are many tests, such as Codex Alimentary. There are many standards for detecting pure honey and fake honey. But I myself, in our laboratory, in my father company, we just focus on some simple methods, which are HMF, diastase for enzymes, and analysis the carbohydrate structures. I can say in most of cases it can be seen the difference between pure honey and adulterated honey. And I think it's very good idea that we focus to find the methods that is very easy, not need some big machine or system to analyze for purity. I think for to understand the purifying of honey, it is very important to know the geographical place of producing honey. For example, which part of the world this honey produced, because in that place it can have some florals which can be used as medicine, for example, or it has some properties that can find in that honey. I think for purify honey, floral is very important, as I saw in our bee farm, and the spice and the population of honeybees for the colony that produce the honey. And I can say that as some researcher here, they mention we shouldn't focus on one or some kinds of methods. It's better we combine some different methods and see which one is better to distinguish between adulterated honey or pure honey. As I mentioned, there are different standardization in the world, such as Codex Alimentary, that is very well known. Yes. I think I explained all the information I need to share with you, and if there is any question, I'm happy to hear about it.
I have a question for you. Do you find that adulteration is a problem in your country?
Hopefully, in my country, we can export honey, but we cannot import honey. This is the rules. Bad or good, this is the rules that we shouldn't import honey. So there is adulterated honey, but I can say more is pure honey in our country.
And honey is considered a high-value product in your marketplace?
I can say yes, because I should mention that my father, about 17 years ago, he established one protocol with some physicians and doctors, the Apitherapy Society of Iran, and they knew that they can use this honey as a medicine, so it's very valuable.
So, of your honey production, most is used internally, or do you have quite a large export market?
Yeah. To be honest, my father do the business. For example, he went to Canada, Europe, different countries, and he negotiate and sell our products.
So you are,
especially in Arab countries, it's near to Iran, it's very easy to send it there.
Yes,
Do we
please.
have any comments on the floor? Thank you.
I wanted to comment that I agree with you that simple methods are very useful, but especially for simple adulterations, which is the case in Venezuela. I gave 4 workshops in August to the Anti-Cancer Society, exposing the consumers to genuine honey and false honey. This is the best way to show them how to choose. And of course, these participants, they can also bring the honey they use at home. So we can identify what type of honey they are consuming. And additionally, this is a nice activity to do as social work that is now compulsory at universities for students to participate in community work. And we are using the triangle test. So you have exposure to the genuine honey and also the false honey in the triangle way, and they have to choose what honey is different. And it's very nice, everybody's learning, but I'm afraid that for very sophisticated adulteration, this is not going to work. What is your opinion, please?
To be honest, I myself, as a food technician in a laboratory, I work to find the new method that is viable and easy and practical to use. So I can say the best way is the HMF. HMF, it's very easy. Not the one that you need some machine like spectrophotometer or chromatography. No, not that one. The easy one that is biochemistry. Yeah, with a small market, you prepare one solution. It's you can carry it even in bee farm or any place. You just see the changing of the color, so you can understand this is heated honey or some honey that is not pure. Yeah. I hope you find your answer.
Comment from Gudrun?
Just a comment to what you said in the very beginning. It is interesting also what Patricia said, the organoleptic characteristics. Yeah, I think for experienced person, yeah, it's they are able to say, oh, this is a suspicious honey. I can confirm from my experience. Yeah, we quite often have honeys where I definitely know, yeah, I know it's not a pure honey. But whatever testing I do, I cannot find anything. And this is a problem because the trade needs something, yeah, you have to measure, you have to prove, to give a certificate. But what we also do is this pollen analysis and look, does nectar sources correspond to the organoleptic characteristics? And quite often we find honeys which it is not the case. You know, you find a predominant pollen of linden, for example, but the taste and smell is not at all for linden. So we exactly know there is something added, there must be something added. But of course, pollen you can only do by in European countries, not in the US, where they filter out the pollen. But organoleptic, what you said, it's interesting. For experienced people, I think it can give a first indication.
Right. Thank you.
Have we any more comments from the floor for Salah? Stage. Thank you very much for sharing with us. Now, have we any other speakers in our audience that would like to share with us at this stage? Or should we go into an open discussion on what we can actually do about this? We've had 3 hours, we've heard from speakers around the world. There's a problem. We all know there's a problem. What can we do about it? Gudrun, could I ask you, perhaps, as President of the International Honey Commission, to come forward and perhaps talk to us as general overview, and maybe we can start this discussion and come up with, as Etienne suggested, some definitive purpose that we can get from this, from beekeepers, from the beekeeping world, and get some action.
Okay. I already made a lot of remarks. Just some points I would also like to summarize. We talked a lot about different methodologies and advantages, and I also agree to some comments where people said you almost have to look at the whole picture. Yeah, it will never happen that you have one methodology. Of course, it would be ideal, but you have to have a whole picture, including everything from the organoleptic to the pollen analysis, to very sophisticated methodology to not only look at one aspect. I think in the EU Honey Directive we have a quite good definition to say honey can be labeled only as a monofloral if you find physical, chemical and organoleptic and pollen microscopic characteristics. So this already combines all these different type of aspects. I mentioned also before that the codex, of course, I think it is really a pity that the codex, there was no follow-up anymore since years. I know it's difficult, I'm not familiar with all these codex issues. I know it's very difficult because you have worldwide, of course, codex committee from every country, and you have to combine all the different opinions, and this is very difficult. Even for in Europe, we know how the member states, and to find a solution. If you have worldwide, it's even more complicated. But it's I think definitely we need on this level, on the codex level, we need to do something, because this is for worldwide. Yeah, it's important. I would also make some comments on the issue traceability, which we discussed. Of course, we have in Europe also this food safety law, which requires strict traceability. We have this also for honey. And I'm quite sure some people, of course, there are discussions that this labeling EU, non-EU is not the perfect way. In former times we didn't have any labeling of origin. So the first step was to say, okay, EU, non-EU. Some member states want to have individual countries labeled. I think from the point of the packers, it's sometimes difficult, because they have they are sometimes under the pressure. They should produce a product on the shelf for the supermarket, yeah, with a specific color, with a specific taste, with a specific moisture, with HMF, with no contamination, and yeah, endless specifications, and they have to find the sources. Yeah, if there's a lack of Argentinian honey, for example, they have to replace it by Ukrainian or whatever. So they have to be flexible. With every lot they pack, yeah, they have to be flexible, and might be they have 5 origin in this blend, or they have 10 origin in this blend, and so this makes it easier to say EU, non-EU. I agree, of course, that if there is some adulterated honey, it should not be in that, it's true, but I'm quite sure also if you have an honest packer, and you contact him and ask him, in this lot, can you tell me what origin of honey? I'm absolutely sure he will tell you. Yeah, absolutely, there's no doubt about it. So these points are just what I had in mind before. We are also, as you mentioned, the International Honey Commission, we have different working groups in the meantime, and we have also one working group which is dealing with authenticity and adulteration under Lutz Elflein as a head, yeah? And I think this is also very important that people working in this field worldwide, yeah, could cooperate, so we have more possibilities and find more efficient ways for detecting adulteration. But at the same time, of course, it's also somehow important to Yeah, one aspect is the control, yeah, how strictly is control. Therefore, I know from Germany, of course, the exporters quite often complain, oh, the Germans, they are very critical, they have, for everything they have a demand, and this must be like this, and this must be like this. But as you see, the result is, we have a good product on the market, yeah? So it has, of course, two aspects, yeah. Not everything is perfect, but in case you do not require everything correctly, you will not get a good product, yeah. In my opinion, yeah. It's no way out, yeah. Yes, it's a balance, yeah. Yeah. But we, as Etienne, is he still here or not? No. 2 days ago, I discussed with Etienne as well as a head of this committee, APIMONDIA, that we should also work closer together, the International Honey Commission, because I think also Codex requires, it's not possible as an individual body or individual company to work with the Codex, yeah? But APIMONDIA can work with the Codex. And we can support APIMONDIA in order to bring all these ideas in the Codex. Yeah? As an individual, I can't do it. Yeah? We had this discussion already with the PA issue. It was very difficult, as even if you are experienced in a field, you can't come in this committee. Yeah? So the APIMONDIA is a good basis. Yeah? They can.
Yes, perhaps. This could be what we get out of today's discussion is actually a document that could go from APIMONDIA and our member countries to as a recommendation to Codex. So I'm happy to have input from everybody as to what should be included in that document. We've had one comment that's come up that industrial honey needs a definition in Codex. We've also had comments from some of our Asian countries that, of course, the Codex, as it stands at the moment, does not allow for honey to be classified as honey unless it comes from Apis mellifera, which, of course, is difficult for the wild honeys and Dorsata, Apis cerana. Should we be making a recommendation that this should be changed? Comment from the Asian sector on that. What else should we be making a recommendation to Codex?
I would like to suggest the inclusion of pot honey produced by stingless bees, Meliponini. This is another type of adulteration we have in Venezuela. Entomological origin. So Melipona honey is more expensive than Apis mellifera honey. And in the Amazon state, you find a great adulteration sold in the Indian market on some syrup sold as Melipona honey. And also you find adulteration of Apis mellifera honey sold as Melipona honey. We don't have any botanical origin or any entomological origin included in our regulations either, which are very old and have not been reviewed. But I think there was a third recommendation in the Codex Alimentarius revision. I think it is in the Spanish or in the English. In one of the two it is, and in the other one was chopped. I can send to you the document, because these are honeys produced by other types of bees. And they are named honey in the world, and they should be considered and included. They are not produced in beeswax combs, they are produced in cerumen pots, and they are named honeys by people.
I know in your opinion quite well. I see just a problem, and you might agree that the characteristics of these types of honey is quite different from the one we usually, from economic aspects, have worldwide as the highest volume. Yeah? So it might be difficult if you define honey in general based on the data we have from Apis mellifera honey. in the same frame as a completely different product. I think it's mainly a different product from the results you already presented.
It has a different entomological origin, adding to the biodiversity of honey. But it is honey, and it is used in these cultures as honey, because it's the honey they produced before Apis mellifera was imported by English in North America, Spanish in South America was the native honey. As in Australia, they call it sugarbug. In New Zealand, you don't have, because this is tropical and subtropical. It's a very geographically limited, but also Apis mellifera doesn't grow everywhere in the planet. I don't know how to introduce this and all the Asian bees, Apis cerana, Apis dorsata, Apis florea, but all these honeys should be included in different sections, of course, but they should be named honey because this is the natural name they have.
Do you have information on these other types of honey that are coming through your laboratories?
No, this pot honey is a very specific South American, I think, product. We don't have it on the as far as I know, we don't have it on the European market.
South American, Asian, African, Australian.
Yeah,
no, Europe is too high.
Tropical honey as such.
Tropical and subtropical.
But perhaps because in my very limited experience, it has a higher moisture content, so it doesn't have a long life. So this honey is perhaps not being exported globally to the same extent. It's more locally consumed honey. Would you say that was the...
Yes, it has a higher water content, and it is naturally fermented. It ferments inside the hive, is the processing of the bees. These bees are the oldest bees in the planet, possibly 20 million years older than Apis mellifera, according to the fossils. And is a different type of honey, of course, and each species has like different characteristics as well. But when you compare lavender honey with chestnut honey, they are also very different. So this is adding more biodiversity. There are some conservation studies, especially in Brazil. They are making a final fermentive process in Maranhão University, and in Bahia they are making even the dehydrated honey. So they dehydrate the honey to reach a 20% moisture content. But this is a processed honey, post-harvest processed honey.
So do you think perhaps the Honey Commission should have a subgroup that actually
we have
looks
already.
at these?
Oh, she is already.
Okay.
We have it already.
So this is something that recommendations from that particular
we have collected, they have
through.
presented a lot of data about this. And this is what I mean, I think this honey has a completely different characteristic than what we are talking about, what we need to define as economic standard. So it's for me, it's another product than what we define now as honey. But if you include all the different types as one, I don't think you will find one standard covering this. And what we need is, under what we discussed today, the economic aspect now, considering as the first important.
So it was suggested earlier this morning that perhaps we need to standardise a lot of the tests, because there are some standard tests, but there needs to be more global standardisation of that testing. What's the general feeling from the floor about this? Can we make recommendations here?
There's obviously some honeys that need exemptions and more research or collaborative information is... There's obviously some more honeys which do have exemptions. I've heard about other high protein honeys. We know that Ling and Heather honey are exhibiting the same problems with false positives as Manuka honey does. Manuka honey isn't the only honey that has shown false positives. So there may be other unique honeys around the world that could be grouped in. These will need to be maybe updated in codex, because it's been a long time since that list of
The methodology
10
indeed
or so
they
samples.
must be updated.
It's long
Yeah.
overdue.
Yeah.
So it's technology has advanced in the last 10 years. We're
Sure.
using totally new
Yeah.
techniques to keep up with the sophisticated
Yeah.
adulteration
Yeah.
techniques. These need to be evaluated, literature research, things pulled together to support these techniques, to show the exemptions. It's a big job, but currently people are using codex and quoting codex to allow poor honey to pass.
Yeah.
Because in the codex it allows that to happen. And that's not right. That a piece of legislation from 20 years ago.
Exactly. It's not standards of technique, it's nothing, yeah.
It's a great concern, and I think we should be writing to Codex as a community to express our concern that technology science has evolved and there are these issues now that we can identify, namely harmonisation, exemptions, and all the other issues that you're raising this morning.
Yeah, but step by step, because if you put too much in it will take years until.
Sure.
So harmonisation of the standards.
And update, to bring it to the actual level. Yeah.
Nobuta, you were talking about the modernisation, the Food Safety Modernisation Act that was started in 2011. It is, sorry, correct me, was this just in the United States?
Yes, it's for the United States.
Sure. So this is something that we should be adopting as a worldwide thing, that we need to actually get progress on this. Do you know how much progress they've actually made in 2 years with this modernisation of the Act?
Well, actually, there are two...
Perhaps, sorry, we wait for the microphone. Thank you very much.
Yes. Actually, there are two sections under public consideration. In 2 years there will be more than 50 sections. The present sections under consideration are the foreign supplier verification program and the third-party audits. So I think we'll try to include some information about the standards for adulteration that will be taken into account by the FDA and try to harmonize all criteria to the idea. So let's work together, and all the information I can obtain, of course, will be shared.
The US does not have a common US standard for honey.
No.
The US had until I think 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when they started in some states like California and Florida to establish a Californian, Florida standard, like our directive adopted to the codex, but it's a mixture, yeah. Also with a clear definition that honey is a product coming from the bees. In former times, you could label everything as honey, and if you looked at the ingredient list, you saw it's 50% sugar syrup and 20% honey, and you could label it as honey. So they are far behind from the legal side with standard honey. They are far behind the Europeans, but they started now, and hoping that with starting some individual states like Florida, they will have in the future a common for covering all US definitions.
So what we need to have is a standard that says if it's to be labelled as honey, it has to be 100%
yes,
pure
yeah,
honey.
not all countries have
with
it.
harmonisation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a honey flavoured syrup.
Yeah.
And quite clearly.
Yeah.
So, who do we make this recommendation to?
Another point that we are seeing now in Argentina is that as the beekeepers move to other areas, some native plants are producing pure honey, which is out of standards. It's more or less the case of manuka honey.
Sure.
So in the future, we can work together to try to define these new honeys
which are very typical of semi-arid or desert areas. And the beehives were not there 20 years ago. No? Some desert plants that are intermediate, they have I suppose,
they have also other photosynthetic system, exactly. Exactly. Like CMA plants, for example. Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
and
exactly.
so they also have other carbon.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have readings of -20, -21, with a perfect
like
agreement with the pollen and the
exactly.
sugar portion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's no difference. There's a lack of difference, but -20, -21, and they're just semi-dosed.
Yeah, I mean, what we discussed with setting standards or saying giving limits, most of them are based on statistic data. Yeah, and the more data you collect and the more honeys from all over the world and from nectar sources which are unknown, you collect, the more you have to exceed the limits, yeah, to cover everything.
We have worked some years ago with Woodruff with delta positive honeys. Honeys from Brazil and Argentina sometimes show delta positive values. So that is the inverse, the opposite situation of adulteration. And that many reasons, but I think there are local situations, and the flora that provides pollen sometimes is different to the flora that provides nectar. So perhaps that may explain in some cases the differences. So a lot of study to be done.
A lot of work, yes. No. But there has been also a lot of work already been done from some of the International Honey Commission members. Yeah. So I think it's also important that all this work, which is really based on good work, yeah, is officially also accepted by control bodies, by officials, by politicians, and so on. Yeah. So to distribute, to give more information.
Comment, Dr. De Junge.
Okay.
I think we can make one recommendation here, because it is a APIMONDIA conference and we are concerned with beekeeping, scientific beekeeping and honey. For a consumer as a target, for consumer you want pure honey. So we don't bother about whether it is mellifera honey or Sirana honey or Dorsetta honey. And in that category, we can make 2 or 3 categories, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, according to its contents, pure natural contents. If grading is done, then consumer will get pure honey, because now honey is going from everywhere to everywhere. So globally, if honey is open for market and consumer is open to know the quality and demand for purity, then we can make this type of recommendation that whatever honey, natural honey from honeybees, whatever bee species, it has to be passed all the norms, and those norms also should be common to all the honeys. There is certain honeys which are exceptional to the rules, like Manuka honey from New Zealand, which is failing in C4 test. Similarly, our Indian honey from Ocimum sativum, Tulsi honey is also very high in protein and antibacterial activity is also not fulfilling the C4 requirement. It is very low in C4 requirement. So such exceptional honeys based on that data and evidence submitted, that can be cleared and made available to the consumer, because our ultimate goal is for consumer, everybody is consumer, whether he's a beekeeper or a farmer or a ordinary man. Similarly, technology, on technology lines, we have now a lot of tests and modern techniques are developing, and we have to apply it to honey like any other food products, because we need not treat honey as a special product, it is a food product. So all those techniques should be applicable and should be incorporated in honey mission or honey commission rules, regulations and even codex. We have incorporated in Bureau of Indian Standards, and every year we are reviewing and revising the methods and incorporating latest technologies. For a beekeeper concern, we should have very quick tests and very low cost tests which he can perform. Which he can perform in the field itself, so he will be sure that his product is pure. When he goes to later stage to the traders or marketing people, at that stage it can be checked whether at what point it has been adulterated. So that is very important. The beekeeper will not suffer, he will get price for his product, and consumer will get price for his demand. According to step-by-step test and step-by-test cost also is involved in that. Then it involves processing cost, testing cost, marketing cost. So all those costs make honey very costly. So there is a tendency of giving low-cost product with adulteration. So that adulteration tendency can be discouraged by this type of monitoring and stringent standards. Cost also will be reduced and common consumer will be made affordable price for honey. Similarly, variety of bees species, we were talking bumblebees, stingless bees, pot honey. They are not, as you said, economically viable because they are only stingless bees or this bumblebee is being used mainly for pollination service, and very small quantity of honey is produced as a byproduct. So those are not very economical or commercial, but they are honey. Therefore, they are to be recognized as a honey being produced by the bees, and as exceptional, it can be marketed or exported as per the normal standards, with exceptions for some or one or two tests. Because all the tests are not applicable to all the honeys, as we have seen. Some of the tests are maybe one or two tests, it may be failing. In that case, we have to consider a group of tests for confirming or certifying that honey, and exceptions for one or two tests. Because some exceptional honey with very high medicinal value, very high nutrition value, and very high market price, it has to be permitted for the market for a consumer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments.
I just want to say everything is correct. Everybody said we maybe also have to consider other honeys that are coming from Apis mellifera. I think this is maybe a second step because if you first try to include everything, every specialty, it gets very complicated. It slows down everything. So the first thing is to have a look at what we have right now and look what's in the regulations, what is in the guidelines, and make a first step in defining what is the state of the art in detecting honey adulteration and bringing this state of the art to every country in the world. You know, for example, Codex Alimentarius standard, the only method mentioned is AOC for C4 sugars. And C4 sugar alteration may have been the predominant alteration 20, 30 years ago, but now it's C3 sugars. Major part of honeys which are adulterated contain C3 sugars. So there must be some guideline document which defines the state of the art, where you maybe have methods for C4 sugars, but also for C3 sugars. And this would be the starting point if anybody can rely on this guidance document. So you define a minimum testing standard. Maybe not everybody, like we, or they have also more methods, but maybe just a minimum standard that you get a minimum level of safety, that you get some sort of pure product. That would be the starting point, and then we can look what should be amended, which other types of stingless bee honey or other honeys, Asian honeys, should we include, maybe define separate criteria for them. But I think the first starting point would be making a document about state of the art, what should be tested to have a pure product. Because if you only look at AOC, C4 sugars, you won't get a pure product.
Yeah,
that's the root problem. It's now, I think it's obvious for more than 10 years now, and still there's no such document.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
From the front and then next.
May I comment in the meantime, maybe for my Indian colleague? I think you said a quick test for a beekeeper to see if his honey is adulterated. Why does a beekeeper need that? I mean, if he properly works, he has pure honey, or if he does not feed, he has pure honey. So Why does a beekeeper need that when he has fresh honey and he knows what he did there? So why does he need a test for adulteration?
There will be a group of tests, and not only based on one particular test. So he can make out from the average what are the purity levels.
Often in New Zealand, people want to buy honey and they won't buy it without seeing these tests. So often it's the responsibility of the beakeeper to provide these tests.
Not for the beekeeper itself, but for the... that
when
was a
you want to sell
misunderstanding.
your honey, you must show testing.
Misunderstanding, okay. Sorry.
There was a gentleman at the back. Sure. Which language?
One additional comment, maybe this quick tests might be helpful on the beekeeping level to sort out a certain part of adulteration, but methods we should use, and maybe we should put in a guideline document, they also must be suitable for enforcement purposes.
Yes, for the official side.
And there are certain, at least in the European Union, but maybe elsewhere, there are guideline documents about performance criteria for these enforcement methods, and we have to follow these rules. And I think it must be more sophisticated techniques like liquid chromatography, mass spectrometry, and other sophisticated techniques which meet these specific requirements so that official control labs can use these methods for enforcement purposes through surveillance.
I think it gets back to the same problem that Etienne mentioned earlier. So this honey doesn't comply, what happens to it? At the moment, it's there is no enforcement for penalising these people or destroying the honey. It just gets dumped on the market somewhere else, the next harbour, as it was pointed out earlier, and this is where there's a real problem.
It must be done before shipment.
There's a gentleman in the back here looking. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to extend on what Dr. Elflein just said. It's not only important to focus on an analytical state of the art. I would like also to suggest that you as a community, as beekeepers and as honey industry, start collecting data wherever you can. Our analytical methods are getting better and better and better, and in parallel there is an enormous development in statistic evaluation. What we need to have as analytical chemists is information, which kind of bee, where exactly has the beehive been standing, how has the honey been stored, how big or larger or smaller containers, which temperatures. All those data, may they seem important at the first sight or not, collect them, because as those data are available, as methods improve, only after a few years, if those data are available, we will be able to tell apart all those different things, and then we can tell this is a honey from a stingless bee. We can find definitions for this particular honeys. So if those data are not collected, if they're not collected now, it makes life much more difficult for all here in this room. Thank you.
I would certainly encourage everyone to keep that data and to share with possible with the laboratories so that we have this information available. More questions? Yes.
I'm going to translate for a Ukrainian colleague here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
He is proposing to create a database that would be accessible through the internet of what you were considering to be sort of ethical and unethical, the black sheep and the people who follow the rules. On the one, that's one proposition on the one hand. So where you can, where there's some sort of process, or he's interested in creating a database where you have importer-exporters who are considered to be, what's the word, ethical, and where so that when people can access this list through the internet, and then make decisions on the basis of that. Which could, and then that this would be he thinks would be a kind of mechanism for also confirming the standards of honey, that they meet the standards of the European Union. I'm sorry, I'm not an expert in this area, but the EU standards and the ISO, I don't know what that would be. Sorry. So the idea is to create a database that would be accessible from to everyone around the world and a blacklist of people who who break the rules, basically.
Sorry.
Yes, indeed. APIMONDIA created a couple of years ago the 7th working group on ethical charter for the honey products. And I am indeed in charge of that working group. I've just talked to Mr. Ratia because it is rather difficult to advance, to go on in such a delicate issue. But from the International Honey Exporters Organization, we have offered our help. We need beekeepers, we need traders, laboratory actors, and hopefully in the next years we can create this sort of database, working group, I don't know what, but based on ethical practices.
So this is through the Honey Commission or through APIMONDIA? Do you think through APIMONDIA that this would be, certainly it would be a wonderful thing to do? Down to the same old problem that who's going to manage it and who's going to pay for it? What do you recommend?
That's one of the difficulties.
Yes.
Cost.
Yes.
Yeah, the cost.
And it is very delicate to say the list. Who is in the list, who is not. So.
And it would
It's
have to be
also
something
risk,
like perhaps an annual update, and for an organisation like APIMONDIA, I see legal difficulties in doing this because they would be open to
this
being
is
sued if the name was on a list. So this is a difficult, great idea, but how do we do it?
No, not by APIMONDIA. I think it should be, then it's an industry initiative. I mean, the US, for example, has done an initiative like this to protect themselves, or the good ones, like this True Source. So we have established a system saying companies belonging to this True Source, they are audited, they are complete, something like this. But this is private industry's quality system.
Just to reply quickly to that, as we've already seen on presentations, New Zealand is on the FDA blacklist. It's also appeared on China blacklist. The honey on that list was genuine. It was the testing that was flawed.
Yeah,
so it was very difficult for New Zealand because we have good products. We know these are genuine products. We find ourselves blacklisted for charged guilty without actually being, we're innocent, although we charge guilty. And that's very difficult for us. We have to look at that. To people think our honey is bad or adulterated. We know it's not.
This is where the harmonisation of standards is becoming so very important. I know personally that I had honey, organic certified honey, refused in Japan some time ago because it ostensibly had antibiotic residue in it. No antibiotics had been anywhere near that honey, but the standard test they were using was the high antibacterial of that honey was killing the bacteria. The only known thing they had was antibiotics. It was crazy. So, but when you're selling honey, as a buyer, whose tests do you agree with? Is it the tests from my country or their own country?
Yeah.
And we get blacklisted. So this is where it comes straight back to harmonisation of global standards. And how do we do this, Gudrun?
Oh.
You're the expert, president of the...
100 years old, we will not succeed, I think, but we can start. I think we need to start with simple things, and the first step should be, I mean, for me also, to define industrial honey, to say that also industrial honey should not be adulterated, and the second, in any case, to update this technical standard. This is, for me, also the main important point, and we can go.
So both of these are directly targeted to codex?
Codex, yeah.
Have we got any advance upon that we can get together a letter from APIMONDIA from this Congress suggesting, obviously, to codex? Who else? Where else?
AOAC could take some good direction as well and bring in some other tests that...
OIAC?
AOAC.
AOAC, right. Well, we have about 10 minutes left in our time frame. Yes.
I'm wondering whether this work of characterization, beside of honey adulteration, it's much more work of honey characterization, could not be possible into the International Honey Commission. It could be a way also to open this International Honey Commission to really foreign countries. And okay, I don't know the mean how it could be, but it could be a good idea to go in this way also of honey characterization. And this also could be a work which would have the basic standard that you decide, the basic standard you decide, a scientific
you know, I try since years because I know we have, our name has been European Honey Commission, and since years we are International Honey Commission, and I try since years to get more researchers, experienced people from South America, from all the honey producing countries in our groups, more actively getting them in our groups, and it's very, very difficult. Either they have no financial background to travel, communication problems. Of course, I like this idea, to have more, because we need more. We are concentrating, we are very sophisticated in Europe about everything, and we have done a lot of work, Lucia also has done a lot of work, characterization of monofloral honeys from European countries, but what we import is not, what we need to characterize as well.
But I think if there is an attractiveness, if there is an attractive point for them to do that, they will do that. Seems difficult.
I hope so.
At the end of the day, hey, it all comes back to money.
No, I don't give up at all.
So
it would be great.
Sure. Miss Venezuela.
I wanted to know what will be the process for the proposal to the Codex Alimentarius Commission, and how I should ask to include the meliponine, but how, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about Codex rules, and I have no idea. Could be as conclusion in this session.
I think I would.
I mean, Codex committees is national Codex committees.
Yes, but not from the national Codex. What we can do from this APIMONDIA meeting. I mean, to do both for the Asian honeys and the pot honey by Meliponini.
Tropical honey.
Just to add it. I don't know how many years it will take. Nobody knows, but just to add.
I think to raise their awareness that there are other types of honey, and that this is something that should be considered at an international level. I think we could also include that as our recommendation from this meeting.
Thank you very much.
Without a doubt.
We say
Who will
this
be at APIMONDIA? Who will be the one? You also don't know.
I don't know, but
we will find out.
We will look forward. Obviously, we're wanting to get declarations of intent. We're finding, from people worldwide, what their problems are and seeing what we can do to bring that together. So that through executive, we will look at this and perhaps draft letters and recommendations that can go and be signed from the President as a declaration that's come from this APIMONDIA Congress. So the 3 points that I think we need to be looking at is the industrial grading needs to be included. It should be considered as pure unadulterated honey. That C3 sugars as well as C4 sugars must be included.
All types of adulteration
must be included.
3 types of sugars.
Sorry?
There's cane sugars as well.
Oh, well, yeah. All sugars should be included, not just C4s that apparently are there at the moment. And to look at our tropical honeys from other species. Is there anything else that you would like me to include in that declaration? Well, I think perhaps, unless there's any other comments, we can wrap up, and I'd like to thank you all very much for your input and time today. It's a hugely important to our industry. Go right back to my initial comments that adulteration has the ability to totally destroy the global honey market from an economic and from a consumer's point of view that comes down to dollars. Let's try and clear it. Work with integrity. Look after our pure natural gold. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Excuse me, could you take a photo?
Take a picture of what we have not done.
Thank you very much. So we need to come and join us for a photo, by the way. Try and do a photo of here. Yes.